I know I said I was going to do another video on a recent book that I read. It's actually a romantic book, and we all know romantic books are just one big wild fever dream. And I was actually getting ready to do that video when I was watching Carrie from Carrie Can Read. If anyone watches her video, they're amazing. Please go watch her. She's absolutely amazing. And I was watching Carrie's reading wrap up, if I'm not mistaken, and she was really excited about the third book in the Legendborn series, which I actually read the first book like many years when it first came out, and it's actually from Carrie's recommendation. She really loved it, and it was an Arthurian retelling. It has Welsh myth in it, and I was like, of course, that's up my alley. I love Arthurian retelling and Welsh myth. So I was really intrigued. I was like, oh my god, this is really exciting. I have to read the book. And I read it when it first came out, and it just didn't click for me then. And I just felt, I cannot remember exactly what was it that I felt when I first read it at that time, but the story was not clicking for me. There was I was confused about a lot of things in that book. And so I actually dropped the series after that. Like, I didn't read the second book when it came out, and then third book is out now. And so I actually thought, maybe I read it at a time when it didn't really click for me. You know how sometimes when you read a book, it doesn't click for you, and then years down the line, you're suddenly picking it up again, and then suddenly it's your favorite book in the world. So I just felt, maybe at that time, it didn't click for me. And maybe if I picked it up now, maybe I will get the hype. I will get to what this story is, really doing, because Carrie really loves it. And I'm like, oh, of course I trust Carrie's recommendation. But this is a disclaimer, people. Everyone has different tastes in books. Just because someone loves it, someone else is not going to necessarily love it, or someone else might feel differently. And so I know there's a fourth book coming out, but I thought, why not? We can get started now and then wait for the fourth book. And so I actually reread the Legendborn series again, and oh boy, technically I was right the first time I read it, and it's just that I did not have the capacity to articulate why I didn't like it. Now I do, and so I am here to talk about it again. I'm gonna do all three books, so this, I don't know how I'm gonna split the video, if it's gonna be like 8 hours long or what, but we'll make something work. And so we'll go through book by book, the plot, about the characters, what I felt about them, the magic system, the world building, and we'll see how it goes. So the first book in the series is called Legendborn, and so this is a summary. I got it from Tracy Dion's website. Filled with mystery and an intriguingly rich magic system, Tracy Dion's YA contemporary fantasy Legendborn offers the dark allure of City of Bones with a modern day twist on the classic legend and a lot of southern black girl magic. Oh my god, I kid you not, I did not realize this was in the blurb. This is so funny, and I'll tell you why it's so funny when we get past the first chapter. But oh my god, I did not realize it was in the blurb itself. Okay, so here's the summary. After her mother dies in an accident, 16-year-old Bree Matthews wants nothing to do with her family memories or childhood home. A residential program for bright high schoolers at UNC Chapel Hill seems like the perfect escape until Bree witnesses a magical attack her first night on campus. A flying demon feeding on human energy, a secret society of so-called Legendborn students that hunt the creatures down, and a mysterious teenage mage who calls himself Merlin and who attempts and fails to wipe Bree's memory of everything she saw. The mage failure unlocks Bree's own unique magic and a buried memory with a hidden connection. The night her mother died, another Merlin was at the hospital. Now that Bree knows there is more to her mother's death than what's on the police report, she'll do whatever it takes to find out the truth, even if that means infiltrating the Legendborn as one of the initiates. She recruits Nick, a self-exiled Legendborn with his own grudge against the group, and their reluctant partnership pulls them deeper into the society's secret and closer to each other. But when the Legendborn reveals themselves as the descendants of King Arthur's knights and explain that a magical war is coming, Bree has to decide how far she'll go for the truth and whether she should use her magic to take the society down or join the fight. Wow, it really does read like early 2010s urban fantasy. So that's the summary of the first book. So we begin the prologue with Bree finding out her mother had died in a car crash. She doesn't know how to feel about it. She's having difficulty processing it. She's filled with grief, and she tells us that she was determined not to speak to her mother because they had had a fight the night before, because Bree and Alice, her best friend, they had applied to an early college program at UNC Chapel Hill, a pre-U basically. So they get early access in, and they take, college level classes and before they become undergraduates. And so once they apply to UNC Chapel Hill, they both get in. But when Bree's mother finds out that she had applied to this place, she gets really angry. Like, she's very angry with Bree. She's like, she does not want to let Bree go. And so they have this argument, and then the next morning is when Bree, she's still annoyed with her mother about the argument they had and everything, and so she does not want to speak to her mother, like classic teenage stuff. And the mom's like, okay, we'll talk tonight. And right after that is when the accident happens. Then we get into the plot, and it starts off at the first night in the college. So Bree and Alice are already there at UNC Chapel Hill. They've moved in, and this girl who was from the same high school as them, Charlotte, she, I think, is like a year or two senior to them, so she's already an undergrad in that college. And so she comes and invites Alice and Bree to this party that always happens on the first day back at the college. And it's like any other American party, I guess. People are jumping off the cliff, there's beers and stuff, and yes, Bree and Alice are watching those people cliff dive, and Alice is not impressed. She's very nervous. She's like, if the police catches her here and we get reported to the university, we're gonna get expelled. She does not want to be here. Bree does not give a fuck. She just wants to feel something. She's like, she tells us that after her mother died, she has difficulty coping with her grief, and it has come to a point that she has started dissociating herself. She tells it that there's a before Bree and an after Bree. Before Bree is before the mother died, and after Bree is the aftermath of her mother dying. And so after Bree is just this incredible wall that she has put up. She is pretending to be functional. She's pretending that everything is okay. She's trying to get through days, but then there's a part of her inside that is like, that just wants to scream and cry, and she's just pressing down on all these feelings. She doesn't know how to cope with it. She does not know a healthy way for her to regulate those emotions, those grief. Like, she tells us that after her mother died, she thought, maybe she should stay back. It doesn't feel right that she should go to the college right after her mother had died, but then she doesn't know how to deal with its grief, and she doesn't know what to do. And so basically going to Chapel Hill is basically her running away, and I can understand that. And Charlotte comes by and she introduces them to her boyfriend. He's just there, and so Charlotte calls them to go and see the other side of the party, and Alice follows, but Bree is like, give me a moment, I want to see more dudes cliff dive or something. And Alice is a bit annoyed. She feels that Bree is on the verge of trying to cliff dive, and she tries to warn her against it. She's like, no, don't do this, your mother would not want to do this. Even she was angry with your decision, she would have come around and stuff, and Bree just does not want to talk about her mother. She like brushes it off. She does not want to feel anything to do with her mother, and they get us into a small argument, but it's all settled down. And it's a running bit in the book where Alice and Bree sort of quote popular culture to each other, like Jane Austen, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. She even calls Alice Hermione, and I'm like, I don't know how to feel about that. Like, it doesn't do me any favor. Like, it just really gets on my nerves. To me, it just feels pretentious that they're quoting each other. It's very weird, but that's just my problem. And so Alice leaves to follow Charlotte and her boyfriend. Bree is still watching them, and she sort of like inches closer, and then there's a guy. Of course, there's a guy. There's always a guy there. And this guy is Selwyn Kane. And I kid you not, this guy is just a cheap knockoff version of Jay Sarandel. Like, literally, if you read The Mortal Instrument and you read Jay Sarandel and you read Selwyn Kane, there's no difference. They're basically twins. It really frustrates me when the bad boy trope, it's been overdone in so many books, like brooding bad boy character who's always scowling, whose just demeanor is the bad boy, but they have a heart of gold and they care for you in their own special way, even though they won't show it. Otherwise, if they do, it would tarnish their bad boy image. Like, keeping up appearance is very important here. And so when you read female characters like Bree, Alice, Bree's mother, Charlotte, they feel like real characters at some point. And then you read the guys and they're all just cut off version of the same thing except in different clothing or such. Like, they don't feel like real people at all. I just wish authors can write guys, especially men, as real people, not someone specifically tailor-made for the main character, or someone who's just this universal trope of golden sunshine or or bad boy. Like, I just wish authors would write better love interests or better male characters who also happen to be love interests instead of the usual brooding, Byronic bad boy character. Like, write actual people. I mean, the whole bad boy trope just feels incredibly lazy writing. Like, it's as if that they cannot find someone compelling enough to be the main character's love interest. Like, they have to be that bad boy because that's where the sexual tension comes in. Like, of course, that's how love develops, doesn't it? It's from sexual tension. I mean, like, it doesn't do any favor for your characters. It just makes them look immature, especially in YA books, because who's your demographic for YA books is young girls and teens, and they read this sort of characters, I understand coming from that it is a fictional character, you shouldn't take them as real people, but that's not the case for teen girls. They do not know. You have to differentiate fiction from reality, but you propose this sort of bad boy image of how it's always the bad boy who gets the girl, it's always the bad boy who wins the girl in the end. They're the one who loves her the most. That's the true love there. And it puts out this message for girls that the only way you find true love if you find it with someone like this. So that's the sort of message that it's giving, especially in YA, that you can never find love with someone who is kind and gentle, or someone who is funny but not all that masculine. Like, you will only find true love with the boy who's always insulting you, but he cares for you secretly. The boy who's always scowling, has never been nice to you at any point in the story. He's always just there, being mean always, but that's true love because, he cares for you, but he won't show it. Like, what kind of message are you putting out for young girls that this is the sort of potential love interest that you're supposed to expect from people? Like, this is how girls fall into the trap of being in abusive relationship, that they're like, no, in the books, like, the main character falls in love with this guy who's just like my abusive boyfriend, but he loves her, so I have to assume that he loves me too. Like this is why we come into the idea that fiction is different from reality, but we have to teach them how to differentiate fiction from reality. It's not that what you read in book is not real to life. There are parts of it that's real to life, but you have to know that people in books are fiction, but you portray this sort of characters in this way that they idealize this is the version that they have to aspire for, then that's also sending the wrong message. So it's an area where you have to tread carefully, that you have to do it with conscious empathy and a careful deliberation. You are talking to young girls, young teen girls. You have to be careful of what you say, how you speak to them, what you portray in your book, because people who read books a lot, like people like me, like especially at that young age, we take everything in the book as deliberate. Like, I would not be able to tell you if I ever thought that fiction was different from reality at that age until I grew into an adult and I had actually developed critical thinking. Like, you cannot expect that of a young kid. They're not going to be able to know the difference between those, and it's such a horrible phenomenon that's been going on. I digress. So Selwyn is there, he's big an ass, and he sees Bree. He tries to do something. It's not very clear what. Comes closer to her, I think, and Bree immediately puts her hand up to block him from her view, and it immediately makes him suspicious. He's like, why are you doing this? No one else has done this. Why are you doing this? And so he grabs her hand, and Bree feels like something prickling at her, like something statical that's running through her, and she's really terrified. And then they hear screaming, and Bree thinks, oh my god, it's Alice. She runs to where Alice had gone with Charlotte, and she comes across a few dudes just fighting each other out. And right above their head, she sees some strange shimmering lights, flickering lights, as if it's obscuring something. She can clearly see it is obscuring something, but she cannot see what it is. And then she sees Selwyn, and he sees those things too. But then he looks at her, and she can feel him put magic on her, and he gets her to leave. And she does. But on her way there, Bree trips over a tree trunk or something, and she cuts her hand on a broken branch or something, and the pain sort of cuts through the magic, the mesmer. It's called the mesmer. So it cuts through the magic, and it gives Bree the clarity. And then she turns back, and she sees Selwyn and another girl, Tor, talking about wiping people's memory and hunting stuff, and Bree's like, what the fuck? What is going on? And it's so funny. It's Bree also can't seem to stop mentioning how beautiful Selwyn is. Every other sentence, every time she describes him, Selwyn this, Selwyn that, the adjective of beautiful is somehow attached there. it somehow finds its way there. It's as if the sentence cannot be written without the adjective beautiful put in there somewhere for Selwyn. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So we get this incredibly terrific exposition to who Selwyn is, and he's a Merlin, and not just any Merlin, he's a King's Mage. And the creature, demon, whatever it was, it's an Acel. And Selwyn asks this creature, like, what is it doing feeding away from its gate? So gates are like basically portals that these demons come through. And it says, it's not my gate. And the thing is just being vague and cryptic and just being a little shit. And Sel gets really annoyed and kills it. And then they both go hunting for the rest of the pack. And I kid you not that when I read this scene, it immediately took me back to reading those very first chapters of The City of Bones from Cassandra Clare's Mortal Instrument. Like, I'm not making this up. Like, you can read those first chapters of The City of Bones and you read the first few chapters of Legendborn, and they're basically the same thing. The way the exposition is told is so similar. Like, oh my god, it's just taking me back to that 2010s early nostalgia filled urban fantasy. Oh my god, because for those of you who remember, I'm very sorry. And for those who are not familiar with the series, so the Shadowhunter series is the story about this group of hidden elite people called the Shadowhunters. And so they are basically half angel, half human, or that their blood has angel blood in it. I cannot remember. It does go into detail of whatever they are, but like, and so their duty on it is to hunt down demons. And the story is about this girl, Clary. I have to tell you this really funny story. When I first read about Clary, I felt so related and so seen, because Clary was an artist. She was always drawing all the time, and she read, I cannot remember if it was her or her best friend Simon that read manga, and I was like, oh my god, I have never read another book where a person reads manga. And for those who don't know what a manga is, it's Japanese comics. Truly, those were a wild time. And so the story revolves around Clary, who at the beginning of story is, I think, 15 going on 16 or something. And so she and Simon, best friend, they go to a nightclub one night with fake IDs. I don't know what they were doing at the nightclub at 15, but they're there chilling, vibing, and Clary suddenly sees a really cute guy from across. She is like, oh, this really cute guy. And so she sees him, and he goes somewhere around the back room or something. And not only does he go there, there's another blonde boy and two other people who follow him. And Clary was like, something suspicious is going on. I don't know why she just didn't ignore it. And so she follows them to the back room where that guy is, and she sees there's three other people kill this cute guy, and she's like, what the fuck? I mean, she hasn't witnessed a lot of knife crime in New York, so Clary's like, she is in culture shock. She is completely shocked. So she's like, what the fuck did I just witness? And she screams, I think. She screams or she does something. And so these three people who killed this cute guy, they look at her and they are startled. They're like, how can this person see us? So basically the Shadowhunters' special powers they have is that they are able to draw runes on themselves that gives them certain abilities, like for invisibility or speed or strength or healing or whatever. And so they draw those runes on them, and that sort of looks like tattoos. And so they have the rune of invisibility on them, and so they're invisible to everyone else in the club, but they don't know how Clary can see them, because no one other than another Shadowhunter can see through the power of runes. And so they're like, why can this person see us? And they're like, oh, we have to kill her. And Clary is like, oh shit, I'm gonna be victim of a murder again, like the one time I go to a club and I'm gonna be murdered. And so she quickly runs out and gets Simon, and she tells him that someone got killed. We actually learned that really cute boy that she was admiring, he happened to be a demon. So basically what the Shadowhunters do, they just kill demons. And I mean, the guy was just vibing in the club. I don't know why he had to be killed. So Simon alerts the security, and they come to the back room to see what Clary had seen. Of course, they don't see anything because those Shadowhunters are under the power of the rune. So of course, no one else can see them except for Clary. And Clary's like, oh my god. And so she's really spooked about this, and she's like, I'll just think that I just imagined the whole thing and just forget about it. And so so they leave the club, and Clary tries to forget whatever happened. And the next day, she sees one of the 3 people who had killed that really cute guy. This also happened to be another cute guy. He's blonde, he has gold color eyes. Like, the similarities is staggering. So he's following her, and he's like, how can you see us? You're not a shadow hunter, you're just a normal person. No normal people can see us. So he's suspicious of this. It's like, you can't be any other downworlders. Yes, that's the collective name for the second class citizen in this world, which is the warlocks, fairies, werewolves, and whatever other people are there. So downworld. So he's like, yeah, you should not be able to see us unless you're a downworlder or a demon or another shadow hunter. So he's suspicious. He's like, what is going on here? She's like, I don't want to get involved in any of this nonsense. Please leave me alone. Like, he was clearly stalking her. And when she gets back to her house, she sees that her mother is missing. So in this world, Clary lives with her single mother. She's like, what happened to her mother? And it felt like someone had burgled the house. Like, it's torn apart. There's signs of like struggles, and she's like really terrified what has happened. And then she sees I cannot remember if it's a monster or a demon or some sort of creature that was in the house. And when it sees her, it comes to attack her. And of course, luckily, the guy, Jace, he was still stalking her. And so he happens to save her. He saves her and brings her back to the institute where the Shadowhunters live. And the other 2 people, they're like, why did you bring her here? How can you break one of our laws? And he's like, I'm not breaking any law. She can see us. I'm not revealing anything. And like, a demon was in her house. Someone probably sent it there to attack her, and her mother is missing. I think all of these are connected somehow. Will also explain why she can see us. And so that is basically how Clary gets sort of pulled into this whole Shadowhunter society in her attempt to rescue her mother. So, like, tell me I'm not imagining things. Like, it's so similar. Like, Clary gets involved in the whole Shadowhunter business because her mother gets missing. Bree gets involved with the whole Legendborn people because someone is involved in her mother's death. They both get pulled into this world where they're not sure how they fit in. And there's one guy that is just constantly condescending to them. The guy Alec from Shadowhunter, and Self. Basically, Cell is like a combination of Alec and Jace. He has the arrogance and annoyance of Alec and the bad boy trope from Jace. So coming back to Legendborn, Bree, she quickly gets back to the parking lot and she finds there are police. Someone had called the police and they get caught. Bree, Alice, Charlotte get caught, but Charlotte and her boyfriend, like, they are let go, but Bree and Alice are like taken into the police car and they are terrified. And on the way back to campus, like the police are driving back to campus, they get stopped by Selwyn and Tor, and Bree sees that the police are in it too. Like, they're involved in this strange thing as well. And they go back to campus and Bree is trying to get her head around like what is happening, like, is magic real and stuff. And there's a funny bit that just keeps coming up in this book where the inserts of popular references and pop culture in this book really takes me out of the story at times. Like, she starts mentioning Percy Jackson and Charmed and like Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, and I'm like, it feels as if this core character is just being isekai'd into this world, and she's like, oh my god, I have all this knowledge, what can I do about it? I'm like, it takes me out of the story. If anyone doesn't know what an isekai is, it's basically a trope in Japanese manga and light novels where the main character gets transported into this fantastical world, be it a video game, a fantasy, or whatever it is. They just get transported in there and they go there with the knowledge that they have from the real world. So it basically felt like that, and it just taking me out of the story, and it was really annoying. I don't know why an editor just didn't ask Tracy Dion to just remove all of these inserts, because one thing I hated is that you are relying on this insert to give exposition or understanding to already established trope rather than developing your character yourself. It doesn't happen much here, but like, it's just really annoying. And then the next morning they have to go and see the dean, and Bree and Alice are anxious. Bree is anxious, Alice is just flying off the handle. But Bree is more anxious on the more pressing concern that is the dean on this too? Like, is he involved with the police and Selwyn and Tor and all the other people? And so she's annoyed, and Alice is pissed off at Bree for some strange reason, because she somehow blames Bree for the whole thing that happened that night. And so they're in the dean's office, he's being an ass, and he doesn't expel them, but Bree and Alice now has to report to like a peer mentor. So it's like just just a second year student who's just there. And then once they're out of the office, Alice just flies off the handle. She just blames everything under the sun on Bree, and she's like, this is all your fault, you're the one who wanted to go to the party, I had to come along too, you did this, you did. And I'm like, how is any of this Bree's fault? Like, I'm supposed to imagine these two are best friends. Like, what? Like, first of all, it's already established that Charlotte was the one who invited you guys. If you didn't want to go, you could have just said no, but you still both went, and regardless if you went or not, you are each other's company, and so you have to look out for each other. And they've been best friends since children. Like, I would imagine if I went to a party with my best friend, regardless if I wanted to go, if something happened that I'm gonna stick close to her, I'm not gonna blame that this is all her fault. Okay, maybe some part of me will, but eventually we'll come to an agreement, like, we still have to stick together. But Alice is just blames everything under the sun on Bree, and Bree's like, how is any of this my fault? But Alice doesn't listen, she just storms off. And I'm supposed to believe these two are best friends? Like, what? And then Bree's father calls to check in on her. It's only been one day. It's only been one day. Bree's father calls to check in on her. And once they're done talking, Bree sort of feels the same grief that she felt that her mother's dead, and she feels the grief again. But this time, it feels as if she sees a new memory from the night. The memory she thought that she had on the night that her mother died seemed to be another memory entirely. That's not the memory that she knows. She's really startled. She's like, she doesn't know what to do. And so she goes around. She's trying to find out who Selwyn and Tor are and what their deal is. And then she meets her mentor, Nick Davis, another white dude. He's the clear opposite to Selwyn. He's the sunshine golden retriever character. Like, he can do no wrong. And they sort of talk, flirt, I don't know, something. And it's very weird. Then while they are on their way to Bree's dorm, Bree sees the same weird shimmering light. The same thing she saw the night of the party. She sees it again. And for some strange reason, she like runs towards it. I'm like, girl, why? And she runs towards it, and it happens to be a creature, and it nearly rips her to pieces if it wasn't for Darling Nick. And of course it's Darling Nick, he cannot do no wrong, and he saves her. He manages to save her, but just before he kills the creature's saliva falls on Bree, and it's very corrosive, it's acidic, and she passes out from the pain. And so he brings her to the infirmary where she gets healed by this guy named William. And so we learn that Darling Nick is also part of the Legendborn, like Selwyn and Tor, and apparently the thing that attacked Bree was a hellhound. And when Bree wakes up, she and Nick talk. Nick thinks she's a page, very low level people in the Legendborn circle or something, that either she's a spy sent from other places. I kid you not, like, the whole hierarchy of this secret society boggles my mind. I'm taking it all at face value. I have no interest in explaining what any of it means. I'm just saying it as it is because the whole thing confuses me, and I still don't know what the fuck is happening within this circle. And so Nick thinks that she is a spy sent from other part of the country or something to test him or whatever. Otherwise, she is someone's page who like sent her here for recruiting or something. And Bree is like, the boy is mad. Do you think I want to be a part of this? And so we learn that Nick, Sal, Tor, they're part of the Legendborn people, and the demons are called Shadowborn. And so basically the Legendborn hunt Shadowborn because they're good people, I guess. I don't know. Like, you can see a clear parallel between this and Shadowhunters. They're basically the same thing. And so there's a funny line that Nick says in this book that's just very funny. And he says that we don't hunt the demons just to hunt them. We don't do it because we like it, no matter what other chapters say. We do it to protect humanity. I'm like, okay, whatever makes you sleep at night, I guess. So Nick still doesn't know what Bree is because, like, she can see these things normal people aren't supposed to, just like Harry. And so he's trying to get to the bottom of this, and then Cell appears, and Nick is like, oh fuck. And then Nick realizes there's a chance that Bree is a normal person, and if Cell sees her, he's gonna fucking flip the table, and he's like, oh shit, I have to protect Bree. And so Cell comes in, he just like flies through the door in rampage, and he comes in and he argues with Nick, and Will is like, please people, this is a fucking infirmary, please don't make me throw you out. And we learn that normal people have a name to call one spawn, and I'm like, I wish Tracy Dion had like a better name category for these people. They're all, it's so derivative, and I'm like, oh my god. And Cell is being an ass. Nick is trying to protect Bree, it's a fucking disaster. So Nick sort of tells her, you know, just do not let Sal know that his magic didn't work. And so she just allows him to place another magic on her, and she wakes up in her room the next morning, and Alice is pissed off again. But at least she has a reasonable reason now to be pissed off, because the story was that Bree got drunk at a frat house and Nick had to carry her back home. And so, okay, of course I understand that Alice would be completely worried that she had done this thing and that she did not tell Alice about it. But Alice's anger is not that Bree did not tell her and went alone there. Her anger is that Bree is acting out on her grief, which, what? Like, if my best friend mother just died and I'm not there, regardless of what she does, I'm not beside her all the time, like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, Alice is, I don't know, I just find Alice to be such a weird character, like a weird selfish character, as if this was a person you just was friends with for 1 year instead of a person who's been with you since you were 6 or 7. Like, this is like half their life they've been together as best friends, and you're telling me that Alice can't even articulate even the basic common sense to think, you know, Bree is going through a lot right now, her mother just died, I have to be there for her regardless of what she does. And I'm like, what? It's so ridiculous. And like, Alice storms out like she always does, and so Bree goes to brush her teeth, and while she's brushing her teeth, she bites down on her lips accidentally, and the pain removes the magic again, just like the night of the party, and she remembers again what happened that night. Everything comes back to her, and she's like, okay, I have to go look for Nick. And so she goes, she finds Nick, she wants answer, but Nick knows that now that she's not a spy, she's not anyone involved in the circle, she's a normal person, he does not want to get her involved because this is fucking dangerous. She almost died and Sal is on the lookout to kill her. So he's like, please do not get involved, this is nothing to do with you, please just forget everything about this. And the thing is, I quite like Nick's character. He's charming and sweet, but he's also nice, like he's really caring and stuff, you know, and so I really like his character. But of course I had already clocked that, you know, Bree's love interest is gonna be Selvin anyway, because what else is the bad boy trope there for except for the sexual tension and the love interest? And so Nick doesn't want to give her an answer, and so what Bree does is that she just googles like the societies in that college, and like 3 are named after Greek myth, 1 is Norse, and 1 is after the round table, and she's like, that is supposed to be it. And I'm like, the people are not even trying to be subtle at all. It's so ridiculous. And so she goes through those things and she wonders like if it all relates to King Arthur and stuff. Like, you know, we don't even see Bree read up anything. Does she have like a, you know, common knowledge of what King Arthur is, what the story is and everything? Like, what? She just knows the name King Arthur? Like, oh my god. And so since Nick doesn't want to tell her anything, and she finds that the society has their own like building at the site, so she's like, okay, I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna find answers. And so she goes there and she's greeted by this girl called Sarah, and Bree was like, Nick sent me here. And she's like, oh, so you must be the new page. Bree's like, I don't know what the fuck that means. She's like, yeah, sure. And so Sarah goes to call Nick. Bree's just there waiting for him, and he comes and he looks pissed off, and he's like, you do not know what the fuck you're doing here, please get out. And then Bree tells him, no, whatever happened the night my mother died, a Merlin was there, someone wiped my memories, I want to know who is involved, why did they do that, does it have anything to do with my mother's death, like I need answers. And Nick is like, oh my god, I cannot for the life of me do this now. And because like there's something going on that day, it's supposed to be the day the new pages are being recruited into the society, and Nick's like, this is a really bad timing. And he hears Bree's side of the story. Nick is like, you know, you're not gonna get any answers here, even I can't find those answers for you, I'm no one in this society, I'm just this kid, I'm just this scion. If you want answers, you have to get up in the ranks, like the hierarchy, like there's people on top of me that control everything, like I'm not gonna be able to get you the answers that you need. And she's like, okay fine, then I'll find them myself. And he's like, it's even worse, you're not gonna be able to get that. And she's like, okay fine, if I can't get it as an outsider, I'm gonna become one of the Legendborns and get my answers. And he's like, oh my god, this girl is driving me crazy. And before they can get out, everyone else comes in, and then they cannot leave anymore. And so they see Nick and they're like, oh my god, Nick is back. And so apparently we get the idea that Nick was someone everyone knows. And Nick is like, okay, if you want to get into this, you have to find answers, you're gonna have to listen to me. And so he deals with the situation. He's like, yes, I'm back, this is my new page, I'm gonna initiate her in the initiation tonight. And so Bree gets initiated, and so they get to the ceremony, and she is brought in with all these other pages who are also getting initiated. And who is that? Sal. The minute Sal sees her, he flies off the fucking handle. He attacks her. Like, Bree cannot catch a fucking break. But Nick manages to stop him, and they nearly get into a fight, but they're stopped by Dr. Davis. Dr. Davis is Nick's father, and he's kind of like the head of the circle now or something, and so Sal cannot say anything against Dr. Davis for reasons I'll say later. And so he puts a stop to it for now, and my god, this guy, he is just constantly quoting Tennyson. Like, my man, nobody talks like that. Please talk like a normal fucking person. Like, bro just keeps quoting Tennyson as if he's the second coming of Arthur himself, which ironically we'll find out later. And they go through the initiation and everything. Like, bro, the whole thing feels like a goddamn cult. Like, it feels like a fucking cult rather than a company of knights. Like, truly, it feels like a fucking cult. Like, the more I think about it now, it's less the round table of Arthur's company and more like the KKK. And then the initiation goes on, and so each page, when they get bonded, tied something to scion. So scions are basically the heir of one of the knights of the round table, or as far as I can understand. The whole hierarchy is ridiculous. I don't know what is going on. Things just happen. I'm taking it at face value. I am not explaining anything in this, but there's a lot of other things I don't really want to get into it. And so each page that gets initiated into this, they say their name, and then they're bonded to the scion, who then we learn who is the knight that they are descended from. And when Bree gets bonded to Nick, they say that he is the scion of Arthur Pendragon himself. Like, of course he is. And it's such a funny line that when this happens, Bree looks to Nick and he's like, why didn't you tell me? And I'm like, girl, it's been 2 fucking days. Like, calm down. How was he supposed to tell you any of this in the span of 2 fucking days? It's only been 2 fucking days. And already it felt like weeks had passed by at this point, but it's only been 2 days. Then they're all initiated, and then Felicity cries in pain and she collapses, and then we learn that she's been called. We don't really know what it means yet, but it's vaguely said that the knights, when the scions are called, the knights are awakened within them. So, but explained later on, and so we'll get to that. And so Felicity is taken off to the infirmary, and then they get attacked by another hellhound. It's like, these people cannot catch a break. And so the Dr. Davis and the other scions and whatever they are, they go to defend, to kill those demons, and the pages are ordered to run back to the manor, I guess, the building, the place, whatever is it. And so they run back, but then they all sort of get lost in the forest, and Bree comes across this other creature. So it's said to be a greater demon. They all call it in Welsh, and I'm just like, it could have just been in English. There was no need for the Welsh at all. Like, these people are not Welsh, and I'm like, ah. And so they're there, and Bree is taken by this greater demon, and Will and the others try and save her. The greater demon is actually trying to get after Nick. Like, it's deliberately targeting Nick, and then it gets Dr. Davis and basically just snaps him in half. Like, and then Nick goes after it and he easily defeats Nick. Sal is there just fighting him on and on and on, and eventually Bree and Sal manages to kill him, and everyone is brought to the infirmary to be healed. Bree is just there. She's like, oh my god, what the fuck just happened? And Sal comes in and he becomes fucking asshole again. He tells to William, like, every one of them has to be alright. No one can die, especially Nick and Dr. Davis. And Will is like, I'm trying my fucking best here. If you can't see, like, chill the fuck, bro. I am doing the best I can. Why don't you go be useful somewhere else? And of course he can't do that. And then he sees Bree and is back to being an ass to her. The whole time that we've known Sal, he's just being an ass to everyone, like, completely. There's no other personality trait to him except of being an ass. And he's being an ass to Bree, but Sarah comes to her defense. She's like, fuck off, Sal, like, go be useful somewhere else. And so then Will takes Bree for a tour, trying to explain all that is there, because Bree doesn't know anything much, and it's only been 2 fucking days since she met Nick, so of course he's had no time to tell her anything. And so Will takes her and he tells her all of this, and then we get more exposition to what the awakening is. So it's basically when the heir of the certain knights, when the calling comes, the knight awakens. So it goes by descending order until Arthur is called for. And so they say that most of the knights are not called until like a war comes, and so they're all like just chilling, and then Felicity gets called. She is a 4th rank, and so there's only like 3 more before Arthur's called, so everybody is panicking. And so apparently the 5th rank is Kay, Lamorak is the 4th, Tristan is 3rd, then Lancelot, and then it will be Nick. He'll be awakened as Arthur, and boom, Camlin appears. We get more exposition to what it is and everything, and Will tells Bree that he's from the line of Gawain, although why this would make sense is beyond me to understand, because in actual Arthurian text, Gawain is not a healer at all. Like, they're all knights. If anyone's going to be a healer in the story, it's usually Merlin or any of the other sorcerers in the story, like Morgan and her sorceress sister, the 9 sorcerers, Lady of the Lake. Like, all of them are the perpetual proponent of healer, because they're sorcerers, they're magic, they're learned, and the knights just go out and fight everyone. And I also have a bone to pick with this ranking, because if anyone is supposed to be the second after Arthur, it should be Gawain, because if you read actual Arthurian text, any source of Arthurian text, Gawain is the second most celebrated knight after Arthur. Gawain is Arthur's nephew or half nephew, because Arthur's father, Uther Pendragon, when he saw Ingerna or Tyntagle, her husband is Duke of Cornwall, and so I don't remember his name, but when Uther Pendragon sees Ingerna, and he's like, I need to sleep with her like really bad, and so he tells this to Merlin, who gives him a ring, and some sources say he gives him a ring to change his appearance to look like Ingerna's husband, and other sources say that, you know, Merlin himself disguises Uther, and so he goes and sleeps with Ingerna, is practically rape, and so she gives birth to Arthur, and then Arthur is taken away to be raised by Sir Ector before Merlin comes to tell him that, you know, you're the son of Uther Pendragon. And so Ingerna and the Duke of Cornwall has a daughter called Morgaius, and Morgaius is married to King Lot of Orkney, and so her children are the Orkney brothers, which are Gawain, Gaheris, Agravain, and Garrett. So these are the 4 brothers, and so in some sources they say that they hate Arthur because his father slept with their grandmother, and basically they're half nephews of Arthur. And so, but once they join the company of King Arthur, Gawain becomes Arthur's most beloved knight. Like, if there's anyone who's a right-hand man to Arthur, it's Gawain. And so I would assume that after Arthur, in the Scions ranking, the hierarchy, I would assume that Gawain would be the second ranked compared to Arthur. And it's not just due to family bond. Gawain is an incredibly celebrated knight. Like, there's so many adventures written about him, and particularly the most famous work is Gawain and the Green Knight, and how the Green Knight comes on Christmas and plays the game of beheading, and Gawain is the one who beheads him, and then the Green Knight picks up his head and he says, you know, I'm gonna have to behead you in a year's time to return the favor, because that's how the games work. And so that's the whole story about Gawain and the Green Knight. There's also a funny part where Will gives her a green handkerchief, so it's supposed to be a nod towards the green girdle that Gawain wears that gives him strength in different times of the day. And so, but the strongest fighters, the strongest knight that Arthur has is Gawain, Lancelot, and Percival. Like, they are the greatest knights of Arthur's company. And so, like, that's the thing I said I didn't understand. How is Gawain reduced to being a healer in the story? It does not make sense. And the fact that I felt that, you know, other than those names there, like, some of Arthur's famous knights, you know, other than Gawain, is Lancelot is there, but there's also Percival, Tristan, Kay, Mordred, and Galahad. Although Galahad, he doesn't do much, he just comes when the Grail quest comes. But other than that, there's also these other knights, but like, especially Percival, I'm very fond of Percival, but he's not there at all. That's the thing, the whole hierarchy just feels very, very strange. And also, this is another thing I noticed in the whole circle, is that so much of the specific families, being the scions and the vassals for these people, are just the same family who's like descendant from the knights themselves. And it's so similar to the Shadowhunter series, because in this Legendborn one, the Legendborns are just exclusive to this specific families in the round table circle, and in the Shadowhunters are exclusive to this specific line of family within the Shadowhunter world. It's like, and the magic is confined to the certain families and on both sides, and they're all very particular of people being from their family. I mean, tell me I'm wrong, like, the similarities are staggering. Like, even I did not notice this until I started recording for this video. It's so weird. there's also one more thing I noticed, that the Shadowhunters, they have a motto called, oh wait, let me look it up. Oh yes, here it is. So they have a motto called "The law is hard, but it is the law." And the Legendborn have a quote as well called "The line is law." Am I wrong in feeling like this is just another Shadowhunter book? Like, except that Bray is a black woman and Claire is just the whitest girl you can ever meet. Like, what? It's so weird. And then Will is talking her through all this. And then he mentions Camlin, so that when all the Scions awaken, all the knights are awakened, then the magical war happens. Camlin appears. And we're not given the context under how this magical war is happening or with who this magical war is being fought against. Like, it's just a magical war is coming, so we have to just take it as face value for now. And so here's what William says that about Camlin. It is the battlefield where many of the knights died. Yes, I agree. It is the battlefield where Arthur fell. Yes, I also agree. It is where the original round table was broken. No, not true. So we have to get into a little Arthurian 101 here. So the Battle of Camlin comes because, depending on which sources you read, one proclaims that Arthur had gone to war with Lucius Tiberius, is another king, and when he left Camelot, he made Mordred, he's, depending also on which source you read, he's either Arthur's nephew or he's Arthur's son, a legitimate son. And so it is said that when Arthur, this was before Arthur married Guinevere and he inherited the round table from her father, Arthur and Morgause met each other and they didn't know their parentage yet. They didn't know they were brother and sister yet, and so they had slept together, and that's where Mordred is born. But other sources claim that Mordred is actually the son of Gaius and King Lot, so he's basically brothers to Gawain and the Orkney brothers. And so coming back to Battle of Camlin, and so Arthur had put Mordred as his regent to watch over Camelot while he goes to war with Lucius Tiberius. And Mordred, in his absence, marries Guinevere and usurps the throne, and Arthur comes back, and that's when the whole battle ensures. But another source tells that this happens when Arthur had gone to war with one of the kings in England, somewhere there. And while this happened, Mordred exposed the affair of Lancelot and Guinevere. He exposed it to all of them, and Gawain, being Arthur's most trusted knight, he goes to fight with Lancelot and him and his brothers, and Gawain doesn't get killed, but Gaheris, Garrett and Agravain does get killed, and this destroys Gawain. He's like so broken down that he promises he has to kill Lancelot now. And so Lancelot flees the place, and Gawain goes after him. The whole kingdom is in disarray, and Mordred takes this opportunity to usurp the throne, marry Guinevere, and proclaim war against Arthur. And so that is where the Battle of Camlin ensures. But Knights of the Round Table are not necessarily broken because of the Battle of Camlin. This is because when Galahad is brought to be part of the round table and he is made to sit on the perilous seat, it's a very special seat in the round table that if anyone else sits on that, they die. It's only one person that can sit in there and not die, and that is the pure knight, and that is Galahad. And Galahad is the son of Lancelot and Elaine of Corbinic. So she's the daughter of the Fisher King. It's basically the same thing again. Lancelot sleeps with Elaine thinking that she's Guinevere, but she is wearing a ring that disguises her to look like Guinevere, and so Lancelot thinks he's sleeping with her. But it's all part of a preordained destiny that has to be fulfilled, and so Galahad is born. And this is because initially Lancelot is supposed to be the knight that goes after the Grail, but then because he has this illicit affairs that he considers that he's not worthy anymore. One scene where he sees the Grail and then he is forever locked away, like he cannot get to it anymore. Percival is also one of the original knights whose primary quest is the Holy Grail, and he is the one who gets the closest to the Holy Grail, but is also not destined to get it because he does not ask the right question when he visits Corbinic Castle and sees the Fisher King. But he's part of the company that goes after the Holy Grail, and so it falls onto Galahad, and so he's the pure knight, so he's the only one who can get the Holy Grail. And so when Galahad is brought to Camelot, that is when the whole company of the Round Table, all the knights are gathered there, and that is when they see the vision of the Holy Grail. And the moment they see the vision is when the quest for the Holy Grail starts, and that is also the moment where Arthur knew that this will be the last time that the Round Table company will be together, because once the Grail quest is set into motion, he knew the Round Table will be broken. There will be no more Round Table again. The end is near, because when the Holy Grail is there, it is already marked with an ending that this is going to end. And so while this other characters on the quest for the Holy Grail, Arthur goes to war, and that's when Mordred, usurps the throne. That is really where the whole company is broken. The Knights of the Round Table is broken with the coming of the Holy Grail to Camelot, not at the Battle of Camlann. The Battle of Camlann is simply the results of the preordained fate that is brought about by the Holy Grail. So yeah. I know it's a lot to take in, but I just wish sometimes people would read this text, like at least the bare surface level. Just read what they are before you use Welsh name and Celtic names and Arthurian names in this fanciful way just because they sound fancy. Like, I have this funny headcanon that Tracy Dion watched BBC's Merlin and thought like that is the true depiction of Arthurian legend. If anyone watched BBC Merlin, like, it's so hilarious. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like, even if it's not just Joffrey and Mormont's Matter of Great Britain, at least some source, any source, anything with the bare minimum, it's like, just please do it. And I also have the problem with the whole Arthurian in the story, and I'll get to it in the world building section. But for now, Will continues, and so then Will also tells us that Merlins are taken from their family as a child, and they are bound to Arthur's scion. And so apparently Sal has been taken from his family since very, very young, and he's been with Nick and Dr. Davis, and his name happened to be Selwyn Amorous Kane. Like, of course it is. And if anyone has watched the Sudden Drowning video, you would know Amorous Myrodin is the name of a Welsh bard from the medieval Welsh poems, and he is said to be the character who Joffrey of Mormont based the wizard Merlin on. And yeah, and then Sarah comes in to take Bree home, and then Will goes to see another patient. And this is the funny thing, it's like this whole book, people have the stupidest nicknames. Like, Tor is a nickname for Victoria. Okay, that's fine. But then Sarah asked people to call her Sar as a nickname, and Evan's nickname is Ev. I'm like, bro, your names are just 2 fucking syllables. How hard is it to say the names Sarah and Evan? Like, what? Oh my god, I just cannot. Like, is it so hard to just pronounce 2 syllables? 2 syllables of someone's name. Like, okay, Brianna is fine. You can call her Brie. Like, Sarah, Evan is not even like more than 3 syllables. It's 2 syllables, and they still have a hard time saying it. And I'm like, my goodness. And so Sarah's taking Brie back to her dorm, and Sal shows up looking fucking drunk on Aether, and he's being an ass again, like, and he threatens to kill Brie if she harms Nick because he thinks she's a demon disguised as a human. And Brie is like, I cannot catch a fucking break with this guy. And so she gets back to her room, and Alice is shocked at what just happened. She's like, what the fuck happened to you? You look like you just got dragged through the woods, like did something happen? And Alice is really worried, and Bree is like, no, nothing like that. And Alice helps Bree into the shower, and Alice tries and asks, like, no, what happened? Is there anything I can do that I can help? And Bree is like, I cannot tell you, because of course they can't tell. She's just pledged herself to Nick and to this order and society, and of course she has to keep the secret. Then Alice gets pissed off and she goes off, and then the next morning Bree's dad calls, and he is pissed off. He's pissed off because Alice has been keeping him updated, and this is the second night that Bree has come back really late, looking out of her mind. Like, the first night when she got attacked by the Hellhound, the story was that Bree was drunk in a frat party and Nick brought her, and now she comes back looking like she's been dragged through the woods, and she won't say what happened. And so Alice is like, I have to tell the father. Bree's father tells her she has to go see a therapist that he set up in the college for her. And at first Bree is like, no the fuck I won't. But then he says that, this therapist was in the college the same time your mother was, so she knows your mother. And Bree's like, okay, backtrack, I will go see her now. And then Nick texts her and he's like, we've got to talk things out, there's so much you don't know, I have to tell you, because otherwise I'm gonna send you in blind and you're gonna get killed. And you know, Bree clearly has a crush on him already. It's been 2 fucking days, guys. It's been 2 fucking days and she already has a crush. And so apparently there's a dinner at the lodge for the pages, and so he invites her and he says, you know, let's talk it out before the dinner. And she says yes, and then the therapist also texts her to ask if they could meet, and so she says yes. So after class, Bree goes to meet with the therapist, who just randomly drops a law bomb asking Bree if she's a wildcrafter like her mother. And Bree's like, what the fuck? So we get more exposition into the magic system. So wildcraft is said to be a branch of rootcraft. So rootcraft is the main magic, and then we have separate branches which sort of deal with different property of magics, I suppose. So wildcraft allows people to channel energy from plants, roots, mostly botanical life forms. And then there's also like readers and seers and other people with different skills, but all their magic comes from the main branch, which is rootcraft. And so Bree's mother is actually a wildcrafter, but Bree doesn't know that. And at this point, it's only been 3 days and Bree cannot catch a break with the secrets. And Bree is like, what the hell, you know, tell me more, I want to know more. And then Patricia is like, wait, your mom didn't tell you? Okay, maybe I would not tell you. And I'm like, my sister in Christ, you're the one who brought this up, and then you don't expect people to ask you what it is if they didn't know them. And I'm like, oh my god, Patricia is just wild. And so Bree is getting angry that no one is telling her anything, and she's getting really pissed off, and the therapist is trying to calm her down, but Bree refuses to calm down. She's like, tell me what I need to know, because this is important. And so Patricia tells her that, you know, she didn't personally know her mother, they were in different years, but she had another friend who was a reader. A reader is able to see people's aura, so she's the one who's noticed that Bree's mother was a wildcraft practitioner. And then she told Patricia, and so Patricia actually invited her mother to be part of the college's fellowship to study, but her mother declined. And Bree is like really overwhelmed with everything that she's learned, and the therapist is like, maybe we should just stop for the day, but Bree would not let her go. And then she pulls out her trump card. She mentions ether, and Patricia is shook. So basically the magic is the same, it's just different people call it different things. Black people call it root and white people call it ether. That's Patricia's like, okay, see you again, girl, bye. And so Bree goes back to her room. Alice is trying to get her to dinner, but you know, Bree has a lot on her mind, and she also has that dinner at the lodge. And Alice is like, why are you not paying attention to me? And then Bree is just saying that, you know, she has something else going on. And then Alice is like, is it with the boy Nick? And she's like, yeah. And then she's like, oh my god, do you have a crush on him? And like, it's just normal girls talk, and they're suddenly friends again, I guess. And then Bree goes to meet with Nick when they promised, and they go up to his room. There's more sexual tension. Nick tells her he wants her to back out when there's still a chance, because she hasn't gone through the trial yet. Because if she officially goes through the trial and she does get through them, she will become a squire, and if she becomes a squire, she will be bound to a scion. For now, it's just she's still a page and she can still tap out if she wants, and worst come to worst, they'll just wipe her memory. But Bree is like, I cannot do this, I need to find out what happened to my mother. But then Nick is worried that if she goes deep into this, and if Arthur gets called, she will have to fight in the war. And it's not just that, if the scions have their knights awaken and they use their power, their life force also gets burned out using this power. So like half their life will get depleted and they die before they're 35. And that's also one of the things that Will tells her earlier in the conversation. It's something that happens, and that's also one of the things, you know, Nick is really worried about. But she's like, nope, still gotta find out about my mother. Then we get to dinner. There's more racist interaction before and during dinner, and Dr. Davis makes an announcement that night, and we learn, just like Bree does, that the trials take place over the span of like 3 to 6 months. I guess it's a few months. And so because of the constant attacks, the amount of like demons that are just like loitering around the campus, he's like, you know, we're gonna speedrun this trial in like probably a week or something. Bree and the other pages learn that apparently that night also happens to be be the night of the first trial, which, oh my god, so much is happening and it's only been 3 days. I swear it feels like, 3 months has passed this book by and it's just been 3 days. So before they can get to the trial spot, each of the Scion has to take their page to the arena, and while they're there, Sal uses his magic again, and so all the pages, they cannot see where they're going, so the Scions have to lead them there, and Nick is bringing her there, and so he gives us more information. We learn there's also a line of Morgan. I actually thought they're witches, but then he explains that they're actually just a line split from the line of Merlin. So they were basically parts of the Merlins at one time, and then they were like, we don't vibing with whatever it is you're doing, we want to have a different MO now, and they sort of split off from the Merlins, because Nick tells us that you cannot tell the difference if the Merlin is from the line of Merlin or the line of Morgan, because they both have magic, and so it's hard to say. And so Bree wonders if the person that was there the night of her mother could be someone from the line of Morgan, because he's also a Merlin, and so they're still like, they don't know what happened the night her mother died. And also the line of Morgan is the Order's number one enemy after Shadowborn. I also want to touch this thing about the name Morgan being vilified, because like I said, I just felt that this author watched the BBC's Merlin and thought, that is the true depiction of Arthurian legend. Because when you read Arthurian text and Arthurian scholarship, Morgan is not necessarily a villain. In fact, she is the head of the sorceress from Avalon, the Isle of Apple. She's the one who comes to take Arthur to Avalon when he gets wounded in the Battle of Camelon. Like, Morgan, she studied magic under Merlin, and it's like, at some point after Thomas Mallory's La Morte d'Arthur, people just take Morgan to be this vengeful sorceress who just wants revenge all the time, when in fact earlier texts prescribe her to be a really benevolent person. She is Arthur's older half-sister. So Ingerna and the Duke of Cornwall, they have 2 daughters. One is Morgause, so she's married to King Lord of Orkney, and then they have Morgan. And so Morgan, when she was young, she is sent to a Coventry to be educated and raised. And after that, when Uther comes to, conquer Cornwall and he gets into a war with the Duke of Cornwall, that is when he sees Ingerna, and as I've already explained what happened there. And so Morgan is actually Arthur's half-sister, and in all the earlier texts, she's actually a very benevolent character. She's usually just helping Arthur itself, but her primary antagonism comes not at Arthur but at Guinevere, because it's mostly to do with the stations at court, because when Arthur is High King, then Guinevere is High Queen, and so compared to her standing, Morgan is the lady in waiting for the queen. And so, but a lot of the text does say that, Guinevere and Morgan had a good relationship. They were really close with each other. But one of the texts tells us that Guinevere actually exposes Morgan's love affair with another knight or another duke or someone, because the Duke of Cornwall had already got her married to another king or another duke called Arthurian, and so she is really unhappy in the marriage, and so she goes into this love affair, and Guinevere finds out, and she is propelled by her duty to uphold honesty and stuff, and so that's really where the antagonism even comes in. But if you see any of the Arthurian texts, she has no specific antagonism towards Arthur. She has no personal grudge or anything. A lot of her anger, annoyance comes from, being a woman, but also that she's viewed lesser compared to the man. And when you read Arthurian texts, the motive of the sorcerers and witches are not to be antagonists at all. In fact, sorcerers and the witches, they serve as the catalyst for the knight to go on their quest. They set into motion the quest, and so those who they encounter on their way sort of serve as a kind of obstacle that they have to overcome, and this is at no point is supposed to be regarded as antagonism. The whole point of this sorcerers being an obstacle to these knights on their quest is simply to test their capabilities, their honor, their prowess, their valor. Like, it is for them, especially the knight, to become aware of their capabilities, why they're going on the quest, what is the reason they're going for the quest, how honorable they are in their quest. And so it is through them that both the knight and us as the reader, that we learn what this knight is capable of, and once they are able to overcome this is when they really live up to their true true pretension. For example, in Gawain and the Green Knight, when the Green Knight comes to Camelot on Christmas Day and he plays the beheading game, and Gawain beheads the Green Knight, and then he says he will return that stroke to him in a year's time. And when Gawain goes on his journey to the Green Chapel to seek out the Green Knight, he comes across this king called Bertilac. Bertilac lives in this castle with his wife Lady Bertilac, and so Gawain is with them during mass before he goes to meet with the Green Knight. And so while he's there, he becomes really good friends with Bertilac, and the wife tries to seduce Gawain like 3 times, but he refuses her sexual advances twice. But the 3rd time she comes to him with a green girdle, and she says it will help protect him from the Green Knight. And that's when Gawain accepts the green girdle. And when he goes to meet the Green Knight, and the Green Knight, he doesn't actually behead Gawain, he just gives him a small nick. And it's mostly just a lesson for Gawain himself to learn that it is more honorable to keep one's promises than to avoid death, because he had promised the Green Knight that he will receive the stroke that he had given to the Green Knight itself, and now here he is wearing a girdle that is supposedly supposed to protect him from the stroke. And so that's one of the reasons why he wears the green girdle. It is to signify that that he will forever carry the shame that he was not able to meet as honorable as he should have with the Green Knight. And at the end we learn that Lady Bertilac is actually just Morgan, and Bertilac is the Green Knight. And so the whole thing is just set up by Morgan, and she sends the Green Knight to Camelot on Christmas to basically scare Guinevere to death using the beheading game. And so you see, the whole point of the quest even begins for Gawain, and we learn about Gawain and all that he comes to learn, what he becomes at the end. It is all set into motion by Morgan, and that is the true purpose of the witches and sorcerers in this Arthurian texts and narratives. They are the catalyst which sets in motion the quests on which these knights go on. And so it's just come down to popular culture, popular media, that they vilify Morgan, that she's this crazy, evil, jealous sorceress who's always jealous of Guinevere, which is not true. Like, compared to Guinevere, Morgan is such a substantial character, because one of the points of obtaining to become a sorceress in Arthurian texts is that you have to be incredibly educated and well read, because the people considered that being able to read and write is magic in itself, and it's also this idea that knowledge gives power. And so Morgan and the sorcerers are incredibly intelligent women, and they're able to obtain magic is because they are so well educated, so well read. They are basically so intelligent compared to all the other knights in Camelot that they're able to obtain magic. Merlin is the outlier in this story, and we'll get to Merlin later on, and I'll explain why he is not as well read as the others, but he has magic. But that's the point of the sorcerers. They are not to be viewed and vilified because of misogyny, but you have to take their text into account. You just can't take popular culture of BBC's Merlin and say, oh no, yeah, we'll have the antagonist be named after Morgan, which is not true. Like, if anything, Morgan, more than anyone, is also a victim in the schemings of Earth Pendragon and Merlin. So coming back to Legendborn, so Nick tells us that the line of Morgan is not as powerful as Merlin since they split, because they have lost access to the Order training and ancient texts, so they're not a threat for now. And while he's bringing Bree to the arena, there's more flirting, and Nick leaves for a bit to see if the arena is ready, and Sal is there. He's being an ass as usual. He threatens to kill Bree again. Like, this boy has no personality, like literally nothing. And he reminds me basically of this character that I read in the Romantasy book that I was talking about earlier, where this character has no purpose in the book except to ask the main male entrance to sleep with the female main character, just to check whether she's a witch. Like, every other page she's in, she's just asking him to sleep with her. Like, she has no other role, she has no other purpose. She is nothing in that book except to ask him to sleep with her. And so there's a purpose for that guy to sleep with her, not that he has his own idea of sleeping with her, which he already does. But you need to have extrinsic motivation for the plot to move forward. And Sal is just that. He's basically nothing. He's just being an ass every other chapter, and if you take him out, the plot remains the same. Like, we cut him out, the racist points in the story already acts as a buffer for Bree and the good things that happened to her in this book, which is not much, but it's only been 3 days, and I digress. So the trial happens. Bree is partnered with this girl called Sydney, and basically they're all paired up and they have to take mannequins from one side of the arena to the other without getting killed by one of Cell's hellboars. And I'm like, okay, we're training, we're trial, but okay. And it's so funny, they're all split up by gender. Like, there's the guys all pair up and go first, and then the girls all pair up and go first, and I'm like, that's weird. And like, so the trial goes on. Bree makes it with Sydney, and they get attacked by a hell snake. I mean, these people cannot catch a fucking break, man. And it's so funny that this hell snake actually waited for the whole trial to like come to a conclusion before he goes after Nick. It's so funny. And so yeah, the hell snake has Nick in its clutches. Cell manages to save him. They bring him to the infirmary. Bree goes to visit. There's more flirting. They almost kiss, but they don't. Then Bree sleeps with him. Just sleep, not the other term sleeping. They just chat a bit together. And when she wakes up, it's like 1 in the morning, and you know, Nick wakes up when she does, and he decides that's the best time to trauma dump on her, which is so wild. And so he talks about his mother. Like, Bree has been asking him about his mother, which, wow, it's only been 3 days, and this book gives me such a whiplash, man. And so Nick tells her about his mother, how he grew up, like, because he's the scion of Arthur, his father has been like so controlling of him, like his education, his training, everything he's doing is for the day when Nick will be called to become Arthur. And like, you know, ever since he was a child, he's been training, beaten up by adults and everything. And you know, his mother, he says that she sees him and her heart breaks whenever he comes back beaten and bruised, and father doesn't care. And the mom is like, I cannot take it anymore, because she's a normal fucking human being, and that's her son. And she decides to run away with him one day, and they manage to, but they don't get very far until they're surrounded by the Order again, and they take her away, and Lord Davis takes Nick away. And a week later, Nick runs into her, and he's so happy to see his mother. He goes and hugs her, but the woman is like, are you okay, child? Like, who are you? And he realizes that someone basically wiped all memory of him from his mother. And I'm like, these people are supposed to be like the knightly order of the round table. Like, man, they sound more like the KKK. Wow, it's so wild. And then it's the next morning, it's the 4th day, and Nick walks her back to her dorm. There's more flirting. They kiss. Okay, finally got that out of the way. Then she meets back with Patricia and the therapist, and so Patricia brings her to a graveyard and gives us a crash course in root. So she says that root and ether are basically the same thing. They're just energy. Different people just call them different, and that the dead, especially the dead / Shadowborn, have the closest connection to it. But the living people can't use it freely because it's energy. So they must either borrow, bargain, or steal. So root crafters borrow it temporarily. So the way Patricia explains this is that people like her and Bree, the black people essentially, they ask help from their dead ancestors to be able to use root temporarily for whatever they need before they give it back. So it's just borrowing it temporarily. So they have no full access to it. It's just finite. It also depends on the ancestor. Like, if you ask the ancestor, I need to borrow some of the root for this purpose or this thing, then it depends if they grant it or not. So that's the way Patricia explains it. And the white people, they don't borrow or bargain, they steal it. And apparently the black people call the Legendborns blood crafters because they steal ether and bind it to their body, which is basically what the whole Legendborns are, because the whole point of the Scions awakening their night within them is basically just energy trapped and sealed in generations in that specific family, and that's how it gets passed down. And so they basically bind it to themselves, and Patricia calls it colonizer magic. And then Patricia takes Bree into a memory walk. So Patricia also practices one branch of rootcraft, and apparently she uses rootcraft to work through memories of past and everything. And so she brings Bree into a memory walk. They go back, I think, maybe 50 years in the past, and we see like black people just getting mistreated during the colonizing period and stuff. And Patricia also learns that Bree can see root, like she can see the shimmering lights and stuff. She recognizes as ether. It's just that Patricia cannot see it, but other branch of root crafters can see, like readers and oracles and stuff. So we go through the first memory of this black woman giving birth to a baby girl, Abby giving birth to Mary, and we see them get mistreated by white people. And then Bree sees that Abby is able to use rootcraft to heal Mary during this time. And then we go back into another memory where Patricia and Bree witnesses a young girl giving birth to a child. And just as a child is born and they give it to the mother, the young girl is completely terrified. And the woman, the midwives around her, they're trying to get a look at the baby. And then when they do, they see that this baby is a demon, basically. Lo and behold, the child has golden eyes. Golden eyes. Click, click. Also maybe explains why Sal is an asshole all the time. Like, maybe all demons are assholes. Like, you know, they're just little shit. And I know why Tracy Dion has this in the story. And so Merlin's birth, in several texts, one text just claims him to be a fatherless child, which King Vortigern takes him in. The more popular version, I would say, the more popular source talks about his mother being a young mortal woman and his father being an incubus. And so Merlin is born a normal child. He's just not baptized because he's not fully human. And that's really how he inherited magic, that because he's part demon. Unlike the sorcerers, because the sorcerers have to study, they have really study, they're basically scholars, and that's how they gain their magic. Merlin is just, he inherited it by just being the son of a demon, basically. And so this is really why the whole point of Merlin's being half demon is there. And so while they're in the memory walk, Patricia tells us that the memory they're witnessing, the people in it, they cannot see them because it's just a memory. But somehow one of the black women in that memory sees Bree, and she takes her to another memory showing this person. He's all hooded up. Of course he's all hooded up. He has blood in his hand and he summons ether, and he is able to summon hellhounds using that blood. But we don't really know what it is, and we just see that. And the black woman in the memory, she sends Bree back, and so we don't really know what it means. But Bree is more concerned about Selwyn being part demon, and so she runs to the lodge to tell Nick what's happened, but he's gone to send his dad to the airport. And then she goes to Will and she demands to know if Selwyn is a demon, and William is like, okay, please lower your voice, why are you shouting it all around? Everyone knows that Merlins are part demon, that's how they get their magic. And apparently the demons in Incubus, of course, they are supposed to be very beautiful, they are supposed to incite sexual tension and pleasures, and of course it's all part of the ploy of their charm and everything. And I'm like, my goodness. And that's the thing, I don't really know why Bree is so up in arms about this, because, you know, if I was Bree and Sal is just an ass all the time, any information I have about him, I'm just gonna keep it to myself until I find proof that he's doing something. That's the thing, it's been 4 days now. At this point, it's been 4 days. She's only known Nick for 4 days. She's known Deoda for 4 days. But it felt as if she is so concerned about the safety of Nick, especially about all these demon attacks, especially since they're targeting Nick, that she's so worried about this that she immediately thinks that Sal is a threat to this boy, even though he's been bound to Nick since they were like, what, 5, 6? And so she's really concerned about it, and it just feels so weird. And she gets really annoyed, frustrated about, wants to know why they're just allowing Merlins who are like part demon just having their way around. And William's like, everyone knows that, so just calm down. Sal hears it and he just barges in, and she's like, why are you snooping around about me? And Bree's like, I know your secret, you're just a little baby incubus. It's not even full, you're just half an incubus, so back the fuck off. And Sal finally gets a full hard blow of his own, and so he backs off. And then they'll go to to the pub. Like, wow, this book gives me so much whiplash. I don't know which way to look. Like, one moment Bree is like in the order, infiltrating order, trying to find her mother, trying to fight off Cell, and the next moment she's all flirty, teasing, the sexual tension with Nick, and I'm like, there's so much whiplash going on, and I'm like, oh my god, it's like so much going on, and it's only been 4 days. The timeline is so weird for so much to have happened, and it's only been 4 fucking days. Wow. And then once they're at the pub and more racist stuff happens, I guess. Nick is there, he's the golden boy, he can do no wrong. And then Bree then tells Nick what she has learned without exposing Patricia and how she learned it. And so we learn the memory that the person with the hood and the blood and the hellhound. So apparently that person has actually opened a gate to let demons through, and the way that person is able to do that is to use demon blood. And who has part Shadowborn blood? Dun dun dun. So Bree is like, that guy is sus, he's always trying to kill me, we need to be wary of him. And so apparently that memory was also 25 years ago, from when her mother has also been in college. And so their working theory now is that Bree's mother probably witnessed this Merlin or someone opening a gate and letting loose these streams of hellhounds. And even though they mesmered everyone, she probably was not, and maybe they found out and now they're trying to keep her quiet. But why after 25 years is not said. And we're back to the second trial, and this time it's a scavenger hunt. So apparently Cell has made like ether formed objects and scattered it around the college, and they have to find this. How this informs them of what they do in terms of demon hunting is not really clear, and it's not just ordinary scavenger hunting. There's like goddamn riddles written for them that they have to figure out what it's talking about before they go to find the object. And it's like, I feel like Tracy Dion didn't know what to do for the second trial, and she's like, scavenger hunt, weird riddles, we'll go with it. It's so weird. And so like the person with the highest count, like ether crafted objects, goes through the final trial. And the clincher for this scavenger hunt is that the more ether bound stuff they have with them, the more they attract the hellhounds that Cell has also made around, and everyone gets paired up, and Cell decides to pair up with Bree. Suspicious. Nick is not having it. They get into an argument. Like, Cell is so arrogant. I just wonder why no one has given his ass a whooping yet. Like, this boy really needs an ass whooping. And Bree is also not having it, but what can they do? Nick can't do anything against Cell because Lord Davis has put him in charge while he's away. Nick can't do anything, Bree can't do anything, so they have to go with it. And Bree and Cell are just bickering all the way. Like, stuff happens, then Bree collects the stuff that she can find, and then Cell manages to corner her to the forest where she's far away from the others, and then he calls the hellhound to her. The whole point of him doing this was to get her alone so he can force her to admit the truth, that she's actually a demon walking among them. And Bree is like, no, I'm not. She's literally begging him to say that, she's not a demon, she's not doing this to hurt Nick or anything, but Cell is not listening. And then they get attacked by hell foxes, which Cell did not send, and they're like, oh shit, these are actual demons from the gate. And so Cell tries to attack it, but this hell fox somehow can absorb the ether form objects. It's not clearly stated how they can do that, like why certain demons can do that, but like the world building is already stretched as far as I can tell. But so I'm not going to get into that semantics here. So now Cell is basically powerless, and they try and run away from this thing, but Cell Bree that they can't outrun it. It's going to eventually catch them. So they go down to one of the tunnels to escape. It's one of those fail-safe routes that the Merlins have all around the college. And right before this, Bree accidentally activates her red mage flames again, and Cell sees this, and once they're in the tunnel, he wants to know what has happened. But then he's like, okay, she's not a demon now, but then he doesn't know what is going on with her. And now that he knows that she's not a threat, he goes back to insulting her, that we're supposed to take as a compliment, which I don't know, man. Then they go through the tunnel and they come out on the other end only to be attacked again. There are like 3 hell foxes, I think, and so Cell takes on 2. one more goes after Bree and it nearly kills her, and she uses her red mage flame again and she punches a hole through the foxes, but then her hand gets stuck and she's like panicking, she's hyperventilating, she wants to get it out but she can't, and she's just there petrified. And Sal comes over and he helps her, and Bree gets a glimpse of humanity in him, like the one time he's not a fucking asshole. So like, you know, probably a win for her. Once this happens, the others find them. So apparently Tor gets called by her knight Tristan, and she has super speed. Why? I don't know. There's no point in Arthurian text does it say Tristan has super speed. He's not fucking Achilles. Oh my god. And so they had to stop the scavenger hunt halfway, and so the others have been trying to get Sel and Bree, but then there was no signal, and then the Hell Foxes attack, and so, you know, things got out of hand. And then Nick arrives and they're all like really shocked about like how did this Hell Fox even sneak up to Sel. He should be able to sense them before they even get close to him. And then the truth gets revealed that he tried to corner Bree and tried to get her to admit, and Nick flies off the handle and throws a punch at Sel because he tried to attack Bree. And Bree is taken back to the infirmary. Will is healing her, and suddenly they start talking about the other Scion and Squires, pages, whatever they are. So love life is like, you know, do you date people you're bonded to or oated to? Is it taboo? Is it not taboo? Like, it is so weird. This whole conversation is so weird that it reminded me of that weird Shadowhunter stuff, because the Shadowhunter family in this entirety, they're all like someone's first cousin at some point in life. Like, the whole premise of the Shadowhunter society is so confined to this very few families, and the law states that they cannot marry anyone outside of the Shadowhunter family. So they literally have to look for people within the Shadowhunter family, and that already has like so much incestuous link already. Like, everyone is someone's first cousin, second cousin, third cousin. It is so weird. Then Bree meets Nick again and they are so in love with each other, as if they've not just met 5 days ago. I kid you not, like, I felt as if like at least 3 months have passed by in the story for them to be so in love with each other. It is so ridiculous. And so after all these shenanigans, they've scheduled the last trial on Thursday, which is 5 days from the day they are now. These people are just bloody getting attacked every other night in the day, and I don't know how they're not expending their resources to protect themselves and the kid, rather than have this really stupid tournament going on. Like, this is what, the 4th attack in a night. How are they not just like, you know, we've got to pause this thing, you know, we'll come back and recouple, like whatever is it that we need to do, but first everyone needs to get to safety. We need to protect the students, we need to keep people safe, because bro, like, you people have been literally getting attacked. That's twice Nick has been targeted, and you still want to go through with this trial. And I'm like, bro, these people are a whole other level of insanity. Anyways, I digress. And Bree doesn't think she'll be able to get through it because this last trial is combat trial, and Bree doesn't know how to fight, and these other pages have been training from when they were like a literal child. And so Nick says they will all get training by a regent, and all of a sudden Bree is like so somber, and she's like, you know, maybe Sal is right, I don't belong here, I'm not doing this for the same reason everyone else, I'm lying to everyone, I am not here to join the Legendborn and be oated, I'm just here to discover the truth about my mother. I'm like, girl, for fucking real, like, what are you talking about? Like, wake the fuck up. You didn't have any problem before pushing Nick into this whole nonsense, dragging him into the whole Legendborn society in the first place because you want to find out about your mother and what happened the night she died, and standing up to Sal previously when he kept threatening to kill you. And now, after one night of that asshole being nice to you, and suddenly Sal is only protecting Nick? Like, what? Like, where is this sudden shift of perspective? Like, and first of all, why do you care? These people are white. You didn't even care the first time you joined them. You just wanted to find your mother. So what is stopping you now from doing that same thing? Like, suddenly Sel is correct. Like, what the fuck, bro? Like, why are you so hung up about this white boy? Like, the 16 years of the secret your mother kept easily outweighed by this white boy who kept threatening to kill you the moment he's seen you. Like, what? Like, I cannot believe this girl for who she is. Like, wow, Bree. And luckily the weekend is finally here. After 400 pages, it's finally here. And so Bree goes to get lunch, and then she goes to see Patricia, and she's surprised there's someone else with her, and that someone is Mariah. And Mariah's a medium, so she's also a root crafter. And Bree does not take to her well, which is very weird. So it's like, why are you so distrustful of her? You're so misgiving and so open towards the white people, and the minute you say Patricia bring another black person, you're just like, something fishy going on. Like, bro, what is this? It's so weird. And Patricia still wants to know why Bree is in the order, and so Bree finally tells her about the night her mother died and what actually happened, and that she's trying to find out the truth. And so Patricia then tells Bree, that since she can see ether/root in its rawest form, that means someone in a family or a ancestor must be a blood crafter, which sort of puts Patricia to be a bit wary of Bree, because it's like a cautionary tale in like the black community and the black people that you do not bind root to your blood. It is a dangerous thing, that there's always a price to pay. And so they're trying to figure out what exactly happened. How did one of Bree's ancestors made this binding in the first place? So that's why Mariah is there too. Mariah is a medium, so she's going to help Bree connect with her ancestors through the memory walk so that she can find out what actually happened. So they try to reach Bree's mom first. They try, but nothing works, and the grief wells up again within her. She feels overwhelmed with the grief of trying to reach her mother and everything, and she just yeets out of there and doesn't go back. It's so weird. She just yeets out of there, and then she goes to the meeting with the Legendborns where training is starting. I'm like, at least there's something this girl is dedicated to. So it's the usual Shadowhunter training. Oh, sorry, I mean Legendborn training. And who comes in? You guess it, resident bad boy, demon bird Selwyn, in nothing but a black tank top and low-cut jeans. And you know that Bree cannot stop looking at him. And more people are being racist to Bree, because that's all white people can be to Bree, other than if you're Nick or Selwyn. So after that day's training, Patricia comes to see Bree the next day, and Patricia is trying to find a way to help Bree. But Bree, you know how people in grief, like, they refuse to be helped, or they think that they don't need help. And Patricia is like, it's so weird. Like, Patricia's like, okay, fine, like, tell your dad you want another therapist. And like, it's a very weird, convoluted conversation that even begins this whole thing. Like, when I read that conversation between Bree and Patricia, it feels like one whole dialogue of just miscommunication. It's so weird that Patricia is there trying to help her, but Bree is like, she does not want to completely let Patricia in. And so Patricia's like, okay, fine, you don't want to let me help you, and you're getting too deep into this order stuff. I'm gonna skirt out of here because I don't want to get involved and someone coming behind me. And so she just like yeets out of there, and Bree is like, you're leaving? You're not even gonna help me figure out what's happening to me? And Patricia's like, no bro, I don't want to get involved in this. It's like, if I was Patricia and I see Bree, a black girl, a young black girl, putting herself in this spaces that is predominantly occupied by white people, and not just any white people, this rich white people, and not just any rich white people, these rich white people who are blood crafters, the least I can do, even if like the therapies are not working, the least I can do is be someone that Bree can depend on, or be a backup support for Bree if she ever needs any help, someone she can depend on campus. Because who else is she gonna fucking talk about? Blood crafters, Legendborn, and rootcraft. Like, who else does she knows about this stuff? Like even if Bree, being the young girl that she is, even if she doesn't understand the intricacies of what is happening to her and her grief and the things that she's getting involved in, the least I can do for this young girl is at least be someone she can depend on, someone she can feel safe enough to come and tell me her problems. But Patricia's like, nah girl, I'm gonna yeet out of here because I don't want to get involved. It's like, what? Like, you are the one who like dropped this entire law bomb on this young girl without even finding out if she even knew anything, and you're just like gonna yeet out? Like, what? And that's the funny thing. It's like this whole talk about black people and their community and how they have to stick together, and it's like, what is the point of this whole interaction if you're not gonna show it? Like, that's something I'll talk in the world building session of the story, but it's so weird. Then the next couple of days goes on with like more training. Nothing really important happened. Bree is basically there was combatant there because it's been like 3 days since she like started training, and this one night she stays back to, you know, at least train more, and suddenly Mr. I'm gonna kill you if I see you near Nick is volunteering to train her. Why? No idea. Why insta love story? Maybe. Is there any precedence to this? None at all. Like, up until that night when he kills the hell foxes, he's done nothing but threaten Bree at that point, and he does one single favor and suddenly this girl is like completely in love with him. She's like, oh my god, he can do no wrong, he can fucking do no wrong. I'm like, girl, he's a white boy. It's like, why are you giving this boy any time of your day? Like, oh my god. Oh, I almost forgot. The only reason he even agrees to help Bree train so that not that she wins the tournament, but that she doesn't lose enough to get eliminated. And the reason why he does this is because he's not racist. Literally, that's the only reason. He sees the other white kids bullying Bree and he's like, I'm not about that. So I'm gonna, you know, show through my actions that I'm not racist. So I'm gonna help train her, even though I've been threatening to kill her this entire time. Then the combat trial takes place, and you have 3 matches. You have to just win 2 of it and you're automatically in the line to be a squire. And so Bree wins 2 matches, but the third one where she defeats this other guy, he is a sore loser, and so he actually hits Bree after the match is over, and she passes out, and so she's brought to the infirmary. And when she wakes up, Sarah is there, and Sarah is talking really fast, and Bree is like, are you bonded with Thor? And she's like, yes, I did. And then it hit me like a train wreck that the whole oated bond in this series is basically just the Parabatai bond in the Shadowhunter series. Like, tell me I'm reaching, tell me I'm wrong. It's the same thing. 2 people bonded forever, they feel everything the other feels, they get amplified power from each other. Like, is this not what it is? Oh my god. And then they hear Cell being ether drunk out in the woods, and I'm like, why do we keep showing this boy being drunk all the time? Like, regardless if he's being drunk by ether or alcohol or whatever it is, he's still fucking drunk. I'm like, why? And Bree, like the idiot that she is, you know, goes to look for him because, you know, she's hung up about another white boy now, because of course she is. She has no other friends, so of course she's gonna be hung up with a white boy. And so she gets to the forest, and Cell is just uprooting trees left, right, center, and my guy is just adding to deforestation problem. Like, you know, this is why there are forest fires in America, because Cell keeps uprooting trees every time he gets drunk. And so Cell sees her, and he admits to Bree while drunk that he had been spying on her, thinking, you know, initially thinking that she's actually a demon trying to kill Nick, but then he sees her with her therapist, and, you know, she's like, of course it can't be you, you're just a silly little girl with a dead mother. And then Bree gets angry about it, and Cell gets snarky, and he brings Nick into the conversation to rile Bree up. It's all just really teen drama. And then he goes into this other great exposition, mind you, while being drunk, about Merlins. So apparently Merlins, they have Shadowborn blood, right? And so apparently the older they age, the more the demon blood starts to consume them until they become nothing but the monster. But them being oated to the order keeps them in line. And so now what he's implying is that because he is becoming paranoid, thinking if Bree is, you know, a demon or not, he's losing focus. He's lost focus that first night, and then the night the Hell Foxes came during the second trial. And if Lord Davis finds out about it and they start to question his ability to protect Nick, he's going to be thrown out of the order. And if that happens, he's going to become a full-blown demon, as if he's the perfect little angel he is now, you know. And he's implying that all of this has happened is because of her. Because since the night in the quarry, and then again when the Hellhound attack, and then when he sees her in the initiation ceremony, and then the trials and stuff. So he doesn't outright say it's Bree's fault, but he's insinuating that it is Bree's fault. And then this conversation finished, and Bree goes back to her dorm, and suddenly she thinks like, this is all my fault. And I'm like, girl, for real? Are you listening to yourself? This boy who has done everything that he's done because of his own choices, of his own actions, that whatever he's done is done of his own conscious mind, and whatever is happening to him now is the consequences of everything that he's done. But because he's implied that he's done all of this because of you, and suddenly you think it's your fault, like somehow it's your fault that Sal gets stripped of his title and thrown out and becomes a full-blown demon. It's your fault now he is being drunk on ether and just awaiting fucking time bomb. Like, he's already been a little shit since the moment you've met him, and now he has to bear the consequences of what he's done. It's suddenly your fault. Like, how is this your fault? Like, this whole thing is just a classic gaslighting technique where the abuser turns the situation around to the victim to say, you know, everything that's happening to you is because of you, that you allowed this to happen to yourself. And that's basically what is happening. And Bree is stupid enough to listen to all of this and think it's her fault just because he's hot. That's really it. There's no any other reason why she would believe it. And while she's contemplating this gaslighty narrative in her mind, she suddenly has some big realization, some big revelation, and she goes to Sal. And of course he's half naked, you know. Of course, I feel like reading this book feels like the second coming of the Mortal Instrument, and I'm not just talking about this sort of scenes. Like, I'll get to it in the later part, but yeah, it really feels like I'm reading another Mortal Instrument book. And I kid you not, I can never get back my sanity from reading that series the first time. Like, I wish to forget I ever read that series. I want my sanity back after reading that series. And so Bree goes to him. She sees him half naked. She's like, I cannot concentrate. Like, girl, aren't you in love with Nick? Why are you being distracted by his hotness? And she's like, I am being distracted by his hotness. And so she makes him put on a t-shirt, and he does. And then she tells him the whole story, like why she even joined the Legendborn, why she forced Nick into this, and what happened and everything. And so now the working theory is that the person that opened the gate to let out those hordes of hellhounds 25 years ago was probably Lord Davis's Kingsmage, because which other Merlin is supposed to be there to open the gate, and only demon blood or Shadowborn blood is used to open gate, so of course it's got to be him. But then he got stripped out and, you know, released from his post, so he's probably coming out for revenge, I guess. So maybe Bree's mother did witness it, and that he's behind it, and he's gone back for revenge, but they still don't know why is there such a big gap from when that gate opened and the witnesses, and why that person came to Bree's mother after so long. And so Sal is like, okay, maybe you have a point. And then he gets another bright idea, and instead of walking out of the fucking launch like a normal person, he throws Bree over his shoulder and jumps out the bloody window. Like, I'm not even like kidding at this point. This is literally the same Jace Harrendale stupid bullshit that happens in the Mortal Instrument books. Like, I'm not kidding. They're basically twins. And then we get a Twilight scene where Sal runs with Bree behind his back, and they go to Lord Davis's house, and Bree has a moral conundrum about breaking and entering, and Sal is like, you've already come this far, might as well come in. Like, and so we get more backstory. And so apparently Nick's mom wasn't just brainwashed to forget Nick, she chose to forget Nick. Why Nick doesn't know this is maybe he's trying to protect himself, to think that, you know, these people did this to his mother rather than she chose to forget him, maybe. But we don't even know how much of this is true. And then Sal drops another law bomb that he's been in love with Nick until he was 13, and then he moved on to other mature people. Like, okay. And then they find this also confidential file that they just happen to be looking for. Like, all the information they need is in that file, and so they take it and they go back to the lodge and they're reading it, and there's a point where Sal suddenly stops, and this is what Bree has to say about it. The mixture of horror and shock contorting his face, marring his beautiful precise features, sends a cold blade into my heart. Bro, are you for real? You've just kissed Nick like not 2 days ago. That's what I say, like, Bree cannot talk about Sal, describing him, whatever he does, without adding the adjective or beautiful to everything that he does, even though he's like threatened to kill her like so many times now. But you know, what they learned from the also confidential file is that the Rogue Merlin is Sal's mother, and Sal is like really shocked to learn this, and like he's confused and he's angry, and Bree goes into this and thinking like it's all her fault again. And I'm like at this point I have nothing to defend Bree anymore. What is Tracy Deon trying to write here? Like, why is it Bree's fault that Sal learning this truth is causing him pain, and he's really, shocked and angry and startled and whatever emotion is it. But how is it her fault? Like, how is she responsible for causing all of these emotions within him that has nothing to do with her? That he's reading this about his mother, about the truth, and this is entirely like his own private stuff. And why suddenly do you think that is your fault? Like, he has to deal with it. He's the one who's experiencing, and like, girl, like, get over your fucking self. And like, in her words, the guilt is enough to choke me. Like, what guilt are we talking about here? What guilt? Oh god. The first time I read this, I did not pick up so much that was wrong with it, and now on the second read I'm like, how is this even worse than when I read it the first time? Like, what? So not only do we get the most basic ass love interest in this cheap ass version of Jace Herondale, but somehow now Bree believes that everything that happens to him, every horrible thing that happens to him, it's suddenly her fault. Like, I don't know, man, if this is not a true love, I don't know what it is. It's truly amazing. Like, Tracy Dion probably went to the school of Cassandra Clare's romantic relationship writing. Like, I cannot make this shit up. This is literally how Cassandra Clare writes her romantic interests and romantic partners. Like, I thought the only student in that category was Sarah J. Maas, but apparently Tracy Dion is in that class as well. So congratulations. Truly amazing. So they read the rest of the file. So apparently this Merlin, Sal's mother, released this huge horde of hellhounds onto the college campus. It attacked a lot of people. A lot of people witnessed it, but also got attacked. So the Merlin went around collecting all of the people who witnessed the hellhounds and brought them back to the lodge to mesmer them, to make them forget. And not only did they do that, after they've mesmered and sent these people away, they actually kept watch over these people and tested to see if there's anything that they remembered. And the whole accident of her mother, there was no big conspiracy. She just happened to die on an accident. That's the truth. Bree cannot take it that she finds out that there's no bigger conspiracy, there was no plot to kill her mother or anything, because in the file the Merlin stated that she does not remember what she saw, but we know she does, but it's stated in the record that she doesn't. So that's really what causes Bree to really burst out. Suddenly now it's all Bree's mother's fault. Like, I cannot with this girl Bree. Like, 1 minute is her fault and the next minute is her mother's fault. Like, what do you mean it is now your mother's fault? Like, your mother has been hiding herself, her powers, for so long to keep you protected. And that's the funny thing, Bree goes into this whole ranting narrative in her mind that, that this whole thing wouldn't have happened if Bree hadn't come to UNC in the first place. Like, her mother didn't want her to come here so that she wouldn't run into the order, she wouldn't join the order, she wouldn't be part of it. I'm like, the more accurate part of the story is that your mother wouldn't have wanted you to go to that specific college because she's seen weird stuff there and she doesn't want to get you involved. And like, you go on to this whole rant that, suddenly it's your mother's fault, but it's also your fault that you went there in the first place and to get involved and stuff. And suddenly she doesn't want to remember her mother anymore. She doesn't want to have anything to do with her mother. And it's like, girl, you need like actual therapy help. Like I understand you're 16 and you just lost your mother, but like, calm the fuck down. And then so she asks Sal to like erase all memories of her mother, but Sal doesn't do it. One, because it requires a really powerful spell and he doesn't have the capacity, and also the memories that is associated with the feeling cannot be as deep and heavy Bree has of her mother because of her grief. If it's an easier emotion, he can easily do it, but this is something that's too deep, too hard to just get this out of her memory, and Bree cannot take it and she runs out. Sal tries to stop her. They run into Nick. Nick thinks Sal has done something to her, but Bree tells him the truth about her mother. Then Bree goes away and then she isolates herself completely for like a couple of days, I guess, and Alice is there. And apparently there's a gala coming up and Alice is peer pressuring her to go for it, but Bree doesn't want to. Of course, Alice doesn't know like what actually happened to Bree. She thinks like, she's finally found like this group of kids hanging out with, encouraging her to go for it, and then Bree snaps at her and like goes away. Then she calls her dad. And apparently her dad happens to be at college campus, and Bree's like, how did you get here? And he's like, Alice called me. And I'm like, in that short moment that I don't think she even went to class in that short moment, and suddenly her dad is there. I'm like, so weird. And so she and her dad meet and they go to a Waffle House, and it's a touching moment. Her dad gives her her mother's small little blue velvet box that has a charms in it, and Bree is really touched. They talk about her mother some more, a lot of family bonding, and Bree goes back to her room and she opens the box and suddenly everything is filled with the red mage flame. I swear this story goes from 1 to 100 so fast, it's giving me whiplash. And so Bree takes out her mother's charm and she gets pulled into a memory. How this works, I don't really know, because from what we've previously been told that you need someone who works with memories to be able to memory walk with you to memories of your ancestors and stuff. But I guess since Bree's mother is like a direct line to her and it's not an ancestor, so she gets like, you know, direct connection with her memory, I guess. So the memory that Bree memory walks into is her being maybe 4 or 5 years old, and her mother in that memory, her mother is explaining to her about, you know, the women in her family having a history of rudecraft, but also they know that they're bloodcraft as well. They don't know the whole truth, but it's just something they have to live with. And her mother gives her more like pep talk and stuff. It's a really touching moment. And there's a point in the memory where little Bree tries to look back at someone, and even Bree tries to look back at someone, but her mother in the memory holds her face to her. She's like, just look at me, just see me. And after that she comes out of the memory and she goes to meet Patricia and Mariah again, and so they try to reconnect with an ancestor again to find out again how the bloodcraft came to be in their family. And this time they managed to get Bree's grandmother, not in a memory, but she's actually possessing Bree, which is wild. So apparently Bree is a medium, just like Mariah. So her grandmother, Mrs. Charles, is able to possess her, which is wild. And there's a funny part where Bree says Jesus in like frustration or something, and she gets smacked by her grandmother, which is hilarious. Like could have wished that the grandmother would have possessed her like way earlier. At least she would have knocked some sense into Bree. Like, what are you doing being hung up about 2 white boys? Like, that's not what the woman in our family does. Like, I really needed her to get smacked for that. And yeah, so Bree is ready to take on the world the next day. And remember the gala that Alice mentioned literally the day before? Yeah, Bree is completely ready for it now, just a few hours apart and just in time too. You know, Alice and Bree are BFFs again. Like, they are not just BFF, they are BFFFFFF, like so many Fs. It's as if like the fight that they had at the beginning never occurred at all, as if Bree has not been, you know, disappearing the entire time on Alice, that she hasn't seen her best friend in such a long time, in a week plus or something, and she keeps appearing in strange clothing and stuff that she never even asked. Like, all she knows is Bree is dating a white boy, and that's apparently enough for Alice. I don't think Alice had ever met Nick at this point, except that one night he comes to bring her back after that hellhound attack, which is so wild. Like, as a best friend, like, wouldn't you want to know the people your friend is like hanging around with? Like, especially since Bree's a black woman and she's hanging out with white people, it's like that would cause concern for anyone who's a best friend with a black person. Like, it is so wild. It's like Alice is like a completely new person. So Bree gets all dolled up, of course she does, and she goes to where the gala is happening, which is at some rich white people club. And then Nick sees her, and of course he can't take his eyes off her. It's like he's seen the most beautiful person he's ever seen. And then there's dancing. He takes her to dance. They're most flirting, and then this weird man appears. He taps Nick on the shoulder, and Nick recognizes him, and he is Isaac Sorensen, and he happened to be Lord Davis's King Mage, which is very weird because, oh no, apparently Sel's mother was the original King's Mage until they suspect her of being the one who opened the gates, and then they sort of locked her up, and then they replaced her with Isaac Sorensen. And so yeah, so he says that he tells Nick that his father wants to look for him, and Nick goes, and our second love interest comes to our rescue. No flirting goes on. Lord Davis comes to the mic to announce stuff, to say that they're only one night away now from Arthur being called, and then they have the ceremony where the scions bond with their squires, and they're all bonding, and then it's Nick's turn, and of course we all know who he's gonna choose, and he chooses Bree. And you know, this moment was, I think, one of the best moments in the book, just because it is the first time throughout the whole book that Bree comes to the realization the extent of her stupidity in infiltrating the order. Like, all this time Nick has been telling her, you can back out, you can go out now, because once you get in you cannot get out, and she's like, no, I can do it all. And And like now, literally now, if she gets bonded with Nick, there's no going back. They're bonded forever. It's the parabatai bond. They cannot leave each other regardless. And you know, at one point Bree really thinks like, does she have what it takes to do this? You know, does she want to be bonded to this one person for the rest of her life? Does she want to have to take this risk of being part of this white KKK? Like, you know, she's having this conflicted feelings, but you know, true love wins in the end and she accepts. Like, I would have loved if Bree had turned out Nick's offer, because the whole point of her even using Nick all this while is to find out what her mother does. She's not interested in the order at all. Like, the moment she's found out what happened to her mother, and she's like, okay fine, I've already found out what I need to find out. I don't need to be in this order anymore. Like, there's no point to me. And they're all white people. Like, what are you doing in the midst of white people? There's no point at all. But then she's like, you know, Nick is there, I have to choose him. So she does. And like, you've known the guy for a week and a half at most. Like, it's not that deep. Like, get over yourself. It's so ridiculous. And then once Bree accepts Nick's offer, the full extent of the racism within the whole order rains down on her. Like, people cannot believe a black person has entered their circle and is being bonded to Nick. Like, they cannot accept it. You know, they're white people. Like, what else can they do? And, you know, of course, Sal comes to her rescue. He takes her to safety, and then he goes to grab Nick, and they're kissing, they're celebrating life. It's so Romeo and Juliet, but you know, that's only the beginning. We all know what happened to Romeo and Juliet, right? And again, another person comes to call Nick that his father's calling. Like, I don't know how many times he keeps falling for this trick that his father's calling. So he goes, and Bree hears another knock, and she goes to open it, and she finds Isaac Sorensen, this little bitch. He basically kidnaps her to Lord Davis's house, and this motherfucker is literally like, he thinks he's the second coming of Arthur, quoting Tennyson all this time. He's a weird dude. And so Dr. Lord Davis is there. He tells Bree about Morian, who is this knight of the round table. He's the grandson of King Palinor, and his father was the knight Aglovale, and that he was a formidable knight and served, but he was never part of the round table because he was unworthy. And I mean, that's the narrative in this story. In actual Arthurian texts, most of the stuff that Lord Davis says is true. Morian is the son of Aglovale and the grandson of King Palinor, but he was also a knight of the round table. And so what Lord Davis says that he was not part of the round table is like absolutely wrong. And in Arthurian texts, you do have that he's part of the knights of the round table. That the whole story begins when Aglovale goes in search for Lancelot, and he travels to the Moorish country. And so Moorish is just, the word Moor just means black or dark, and so it is just a colloquial name used to refer to people who are dark skinned, not necessarily Africans. You also have South Asians who are called Moor people, but the term Moorish even comes because the European Christians refer to the Muslims particularly, and so that's how the term comes to mean colloquially with all of this. But so coming back to the story, Aglovale goes to the Moorish land, and he meets a princess there, and he falls in love, and then she conceives a child. But Aglovale is on this quest to look for Lancelot, so he cannot abandon the quest, so he has no choice but to leave the princess behind. And so once she gives birth to the child, she names him Morian. And so Morian, once he comes of age, he goes to look for his father, and that's when he encounters Lancelot and Gawain looking for Percival. And if I'm correct, this timeline, the part where Lancelot and Gawain are looking for Percival is when Percival is also on his quest to become a knight. And this is the point where he has gone to defeat the Red Knight to take his armor, and he also meets Gornamet, who becomes his mentor. And so Lord Davis' story is partially right, but not that Morian is not the Knight of the Round Table. He is the Knight of the Round Table. We have textual evidence to say he is a Knight of the Round Table. And so the whole point of the story now, the climax where everything gets revealed, it is said that this motherfucker, Sir Lord Davis, is the person behind everything. He is literally the person behind everything. So the hope he's doing this is that he wants to accelerate the coming of Camelon so that Arthur will awaken. He wanted to do that when he was the scion of Arthur, but it didn't happen. So he wants Nick to be called so that he can control Nick. So the fact that Bree, not only is she in the order, but she's also, Nick chooses her to be his squire, is like a double strike for him. Like, he cannot just just be evil for the sake of just being evil. Like, he has to be racist and a misogynist. You know, that's how you know there's bad people in the world, that they just cannot be evil for the sake of being evil. And so basically the hooded person we see in the memory is this motherfucker. He uses the Merlin blood, I guess Isaac Sorensen, his blood, to open the gate to release as much demon as he can, so that he will be able to accelerate the coming of Camlan, so that Arthur will awaken. But when those demons attack the normal people, it didn't work. So it's like, okay, time to come up with another plan. And so what he's been doing from the very beginning is he's the one who has contrived this entire plan. Every night the Scions, the Legendborns, are being attacked is because of him. And he realized is that the more the Scions are getting attacked, the faster the knights will get awakened. Like, that's the funny thing. It's like, we just told the context of Camlan being this magical war, but a magical war with what? Just the Shadowborns? Like, what the prerequisite of this war even coming? Like, yeah, they fight demon every other day, but like, at what point does it reach to a point of Camlan? What is the threshold of like demons being in the normal realm? At that point is when the night starts to get awakened. Like, we're not really explained this part, but you know, whatever. And so he finds out that the more these people are attacked is how like they get awakened faster. So he's like, you know, we're just one night away from Arthur awakening. I really need to get this going. And so they kidnap Alice as a bargaining chip. The way they do it is that they show Bree Alice and then they erase her memory bit by bit, day by day, until she's lost like 2 weeks of memory. And Bree says she will comply. And like, I don't know if this motherfucker is just like born stupid or he is just like plain stupid, because you have Bree with you. You've just revealed the entire plan to her. Everything. You just laid it out to her. Why in the world then would you not just kill her? Why use Alice as a bargaining chip to get Bree to leave the college and go somewhere else, as if she's not like your biggest problem now? Like, her learning this entire truth is already the biggest problem, like, to you. Like, why are you keeping her alive? Like, for what bloody reason could you keep her alive? You could have just killed her, make it look like a demon killed her, and not only is this going to not cast suspicions on you, it's going to be easier to manipulate Nick about it, because he's so in love with Bree. He's going to be broken down in grief because of that, and you can easily manipulate him into calling Arthur. Like, is this guy as stupid as he is? Like, oh my god. So he decides to spare Bree because he's a dumb fuck, and Bree is like, okay, fine, I'll leave. And so she takes Alice back to the dorm, and because now Bree's grandmother, Mrs. Charles, is possessing her, right? So she can sort of like come in and go out of Bree at times. Once Bree brings Alice back to the room, the grandmother comes back and Bree snaps at her. It's like, where were you when I needed you? And I'm like, girl, that's your grandmother. Show some fucking respect. Like, what is this? We're not white people. You know, we show respects to our elders. Like, this is what happens when you're not smacked by your grandmother as a child. This is the kind of insolence that happens. And her grandmother's like, girl, I've been trying to find that ancestor that you're looking for to learn why we have bloodcraft in the first place. Like, what are you blaming me for? Like, I'm not the one who got us into this mess in the first place. I'm like, yes, grandmother, you're right. And so we still can't get the great grandmother, but she happens to find a grandmother 3 generations earlier who is a healer, and her name is Jessie. So Jessie, using Bree as a conduit, they heal Alice, and Alice remembers everything. She recovers her memory, and this is where Bree tells her everything, and Alice is like, let's go. And they get back to the lodge. All hell has broken loose. Quite literally, all hell has broken loose. The Scions are over around fighting bloody hellhounds, hellfolk, whatever hell that there is. And Bree goes to where everyone is gathered, and she brings them up to speed to what happened. She tells them all about Dr. Lord Davis and Nick, and they're trying to figure out where they could be. And so someone says that, you know, he's waiting for Arthur to call Nick, so he would be near where Excalibur is, so that when Arthur does call, he'll be ready to take the sword. And so everyone's like, okay, let's go. And so they go using the tunnel network that we gone through earlier, and then they get attacked by imps there. And Bree realizes that Evan, Charlotte's boyfriend, who's been in the order same as her this whole time, he's not actually Evan. He's a demon disguising to be Evan this whole time, and nobody fucking realized, not even Cell. How is this possible? I don't know. This world building is so stretched out that you can see where the lines are being drawn at. And so apparently he's been that from the very beginning, and he's been working under the instruction of his mistress, Morgan. No, I already said my feelings of how I feel about people vilifying Morgan just because she's a witch, but oh well. So more fighting goes on. They come out of the tunnel. More fighting goes on. The demon attacks Cell and he goes down. Nick gets called, and Bree's grandmother comes back with her great grandmother Vera, and Nick tries to take Excalibur, but it doesn't budge. Classic sword in the soul. And so Vera takes Bree into a memory wall, and so we see that Vera was a slave to this white plantation owner, and they are implied to be Arthur's scion. The couple's name is Davis, but they're always arguing about children and getting children and stuff. And the wife is secretly meeting with another man called Reynolds, and Master Davis, he rapes Vera and she gets pregnant with his child, and she knows he's going to kill her, and so she runs and he chases her. Like, this is a heavily pregnant woman, like running for her life. And so that's when we learn that Vera uses her root craft to bind root to her. That's how she becomes a blood crafter, and her descendants are all blood crafters as well. And the price for this blood craft is to pay one daughter at a time, because the whole reason Vera even agrees to this blood craft is because she wants to protect her unborn daughter, and so what you take is what you give back. Another daughter one at a time. And so that's why Bree's mother dies as early as she does, and her mother dies as early as she does, Mrs. Charles, and so on and so on. And so, like, it's a very funny thing. The whole thing reminded me of like Bree going into the Avatar stage. She's just seeing this whole line of women in a family just like lined up there like in the Avatar stage. It's really funny. And Bree sees clearly, and then she goes into the memory the night her mother died in the hospital, and she sees the Merlin who has mesmered her for the first time, and it is Cell's mother, and she was Bree's mother friend. And so Vera asks Bree if she's ready to fight, and she says yes, let's get it on. And Vera finally releases this person she's been trapping this whole time, and once the call comes, Bree pulls out Excalibur, and Nicky Darling Nick is Lancelot. Classic. Okay, the thing that annoys me about the part of Vera's memory is that where she sees her master's wife going out to meet the secret person, and child that the wife bears is not his child, it is Reynolds' child. And so Reynolds is supposed to be the scion of Lancelot, and I get really angry when people just confine and box Lancelot for his affair with Guinevere, when Lancelot is so much more. How do you think he got as close as he did to Guinevere? Because Guinevere is queen to the High King, and you do not get close to her without getting close to the king. And how do you think Lancelot even did that? He is one of the greatest, if not the greatest knight of the realm. Nobody can defeat him in a battle. Lancelot, Gawain, and Percival were three of the most celebrated knights in Arthur's company. Like, if they were to fight in a tourney in each other, they would just end in a stalemate, because they are so strong that literally nobody can defeat them. The whole point of why it is Gawain who even goes after Lancelot when Lancelot kills his brothers is because Gawain is the only one who can take him on. Like, Lancelot fights 4 Orkney brothers at the same time, and he kills 3 of them. Like, can you imagine going against 4 against 1 and you kill 3 people? Like, he is not someone who is just there because he's there. He's a celebrated knight, one of Arthur's beloved knight, you know. And Lancelot was part of the queen's retinue, her own personal knights. Like, he was the head of her personal knight because Arthur chooses him to be the person most capable of protecting the queen. And that's how he even got as close as he did to Guinevere. And not a lot of people know that Lancelot was the original knight who, from birth, he said that, you know, he is destined to be the knight that recovers the Holy Grail. That's the whole purpose of his birth. And do you know the kind of person who is able to go after the Holy Grail? The knight who is the purest at heart, who is the holiest in soul, who is the most venerable in their chivalry. Like, the person has to be so high in standing that that's the person that is able to go on the quest for the Grail, and Lancelot has always been destined to search for the Holy Grail, but the reason he becomes unworthy of it is because of his love for Guinevere. This was something that is horrible misfortune that befell him, that he just happened to fall in love with this queen who was the wife of someone he looked up to as a father figure, as an older brother, as someone who he admired, idolized, wanted to do anything for him. It is just a horrible misfortune that he happened to fall in love with her. Like, is there anyone in this world who can stop themselves from falling in love? You can't. It's just something that happens to you, and it's a misfortune that it happened to Lancelot and Guinevere. And there's this very, very beautiful line that I love, and I cannot remember which source talks about it, but it's an incredibly beautiful line. It says that Lancelot feels incredibly insecure about the size of his chest because it feels very disproportionate to the rest of his body, and he feels very insecure about it. And he tells to Guinevere that if I had had a smaller chest, maybe I would not look as awkward or strange as I do. And the thing that Guinevere says that is so kind and so sweet is that she tells him that if your chest was any smaller, it would not have been able to hold your heart that is so large. And she's talking about his heart, not the physicality of his heart in size, but this heart that is so huge, that is so kind, so gentle, so vulnerable, so childlike in wonder, that, because Lancelot did not grow up with human civilization at all, just like Percival. Percival was raised in a forest with his mother, and Lancelot was raised by the Lady of the Lake, away from other people. That's why his name is Lancelot du Lac. It's Lancelot of the Lake. And so he's raised away from people for so long before he's presented to Camelot to take up knighthood. And so he has this naivety of him, that he's not naive in a way that he is naive stupid. He is naive in that he believes in the goodness of people all around him. Like, he has such a kind heart, such a gentle heart, such a generous heart. Like, you cannot find anyone as sweet, as gentle, as kind as Lancelot is, and that really is the reason why Guinevere even fell in love with him. And it's a misfortune, really. It's a misfortune for these two people to just fall in love with the wrong people at the wrong time. It's like they know it can never happen. They know it is wrong. And how do you stop yourself from falling in love? Lancelot doesn't just fall in love with Guinevere because she's beautiful. He falls in love because she is gentle, she's kind, she's never harsh with him. That's why he can't help but fall in love. And it's not like Lancelot and Guinevere were hooking up every other night. That's not what happens at all. They know they have feelings for each other, and they try their hardest to press down on their feelings, to hide their feelings to a point that they cannot hold it in anymore. And the moment that they confess, they know it can never be. They know this is wrong, and yet they cannot help but confessing. And the whole point of the confession is really how Mordred even comes to learn of their affair, and that's where he reveals that secret to everyone else. Like, they've just been meeting in secret to just talk. They don't do anything else. It's just them being in each other's presence. It's such a sweet and wonderful love. It is an affair. I'm not saying it's not. It is an affair, and it is wrong thing to do because she's already married. She's someone else's wife. And there's a point where Lancelot leaves for another quest, and he comes across this abbey or monastery that he stays for a bit, and that's where he meets Elaine of Corbinic. And this was already the part where he had been denied the Holy Grail, becomes unworthy because of the love he has for Guinevere, because he's not in love with any woman, he's in love with another man's wife. And so it already deems him unworthy of obtaining the Holy Grail. Like, besides Percival and Galahad and Sir Bors, Lancelot is the only one who ever comes close to witnessing the Holy Grail compared to every other company, even King Arthur himself. Like, he's the only one who comes close besides the company for the Grail, who sees the Holy Grail, but he cannot reach it no matter how hard he tries, because he knows that he has been destined for the Grail since he was a child. But because of this love, he's become unworthy, and so he can never reach the Grail. He can see it. He's literally just a few feet away away from him, but he cannot reach it, and it's such a horrible thing that he feels when he comes to realize that he has become unworthy of this one thing that he's always been destined for. And it's such a heartbreaking thing. And he meets Elaine of Corbinic, and so it's already a preordained destiny. The Fisher King gives Elaine of Corbinic a ring to magically transforms her into the person that Lancelot desires the most, and that is Guinevere. And so when she slips on the ring, she puts on this glamour that she looks like Guinevere. And so when Lancelot sees her, he cannot believe himself, and so he sleeps with Guinevere. But Elaine tells him the truth the next day to say that, you know, she is not Guinevere, she's Elaine. And Lancelot quite properly goes mad from learning the truth that he has slept with another woman, that he has betrayed the love that Guinevere has for him, that he literally goes mad and he goes missing for some time, and nobody could find him, and the knights searching for him. And this is probably the time when Aglovale actually goes in search for him when he meets the Moorish princess. But he literally goes mad because he thinks he's betrayed Guinevere's love. And Galahad is actually named after his father. Lancelot's birth name is Galahad, and so Galahad is the one that is destined to hail the Holy Grail at the end. And so it is such a horrible misfortune really to what happens. And I wish people will not just pigeonhole Lancelot into just being this character who just is in affair with Guinevere. Like, it's not that they're doing this defying all customs of law of the courtly order and saying, you know, fuck it, we love each other and we're going to do each other. No, they know their station, their ranks, their duties and responsibility. They try their damnness best to avoid feeling what they feel. It's just, it gets to a point where there was no point holding it anymore, that they had to just confess. And it's really a misfortune of two people falling in love with the wrong people at the wrong time, really. And that really bears its consequences when the Battle of Camlan ensures. But it was already preordained to happen because of the coming of the Holy Grail. So, you know, how much of it is already a predestined conception. And so I just wish people would, you know, learn about Lancelot for who he was, because he was one of the Round Table's most celebrated knights, other than Gawain and Percival. Like, he goes on so many quests, so many adventures, he does so many chivalric stuff, he attains so much glory, so much name, that he becomes the most celebrated. And I wish people would know that, rather than, you know, just thinking that all there is to his story is just that he had an affair with Guinevere. Like, the entire culprit of all this thing is Uther Pendragon and Merlin. Like, they are the cause of all of this. And so the other point I wanted to make is that a really modern preconception that Excalibur is the sword in the stone. But if you read Arthurian texts, that's not true. The sword in the stone and Excalibur are two different swords. The sword in the stone is the sword in the stone, that the one that Arthur pulls out, you know, to say that he's the son of Uther Pendragon. Excalibur was given to Arthur by the Lady of the Lake on behest of Merlin. So that's the magical sword that he defeats all his enemies with. That's not the sword in the stone. Those are two different swords. So people always get the preconception that they're the same sword, which they're not. They're two different swords. And back to Legendborn. So they defeat monsters and Bree becomes exhausted, but Arthur is still possessing her, and he turns around and demands everyone to bow to him. And Bree's like, I'm not a tyrant, like, what is wrong with you? But she doesn't have any choice, he's controlling her, and so they all bow to her, and then she collapses. And she wakes up the next day, and Sel comes in looking like he's out of his mind. So we learn that the Regents have kidnapped Nick for real. Like, these people cannot catch a fucking break from the beginning of the book to end. So Bree reconvenes with everyone and she tells them of her memories, because, you know, they don't understand how Bree could be the scion of Arthur. They have records stating that, you know, the Davies are the scions of Arthur, and then Bree explains the man he raped Vera, and so it's a splinter of his line that Vera has been carrying the child, and child that has been recorded as the Davies is actually Reynolds. So Reynolds is the scion of Lancelot, and Nick is from the Reynolds line. And so some of them, like, of course, it's going to be the white girl. Like, they do not accept Bree as their king. There's like a whole civil war that's happening, and like Bree moves to go and be alone, and Sel is there, and then she tells him about his mother, because that's the one thing that she doesn't tell him when she's telling the other memories to all of them. She tells him about his mother, but Sel doesn't believe her, because he thinks that, you know, that can't be possible, because his mother has been stripped of her title and kicked out of the order like a long time ago. He would have succumbed to her demon demon blood. But then Bree is like, no, your mother was alright, she was normal, she was lucid, she was not going crazy. And then they come to realize that maybe the Order has been lying about the Merlins all this time, all these years, to keep them in line, that they've been using these lies to brainwash them, to say that if they leave the Order they will succumb and become a demon, which is not true. So Sal has been an ass because he's an ass, not because he has demon blood. That's what we get from here. And then Selwyn says the corniest line in the entire book: "You are my king, Cariad." Oh boy. So if anyone doesn't know what Cariad means, Cariad just means love in Welsh. I'm like, shut the fuck up. You people are not Welsh. Like, get the fuck out of here. It's like so fucking pretentious. And I'm like, none of these people are Welsh. They don't speak Welsh. They're not bilingual. You know how when you're bilingual, you talk simultaneously two languages. Sometimes you tend to mix up phrases and meanings, that you just switch them suddenly because you just know the meaning for them in this other language, then you cannot remember the one in English. But that's not what's happening here. None of these people are Welsh. They don't even know Welsh. They just use fancy Welsh term to refer to all the Legendborn stuff, which is like, has the fantasy authors not appropriated Welsh stuff for their fantasy part enough? Like, what is this token fantasy representation? It's so bad. And that's the thing, they don't even use Welsh as a language, as in these people are Welsh and they learn Welsh. They just use Welsh name for places and demons and stuff. Like, they literally don't use Welsh for anything else other than to refer to like Arthurian stuff. At least have the intricacy to say, okay, maybe they're all Welsh, or they speak the language because they are from Wales, they are families from Wales. You can't have like 20 descendant family in bloody America and say that they speak Welsh because they're from Arthurian legend. Like, what kind of stupidity is that? Like, you're appropriating people's language and culture in a fantasy element. Like, I don't know any culture who's been appropriated as much as the Welsh people in this fantasy community. Like, I feel so bad for them. Like, every other fantasy sounding name, fantasy sounding characters, fantasy sounding places, it always goes back to Welsh. Like, these poor people have already been colonized by the English, forced to not speak their language, and people are here just appropriating it for whatever reason that they want. And then we get to the final line. So Bree and Sel, they go back to the quarry, and Bree finally is brave enough to cliff dive. It become a full circle moment. The first time she meets Sel is at the quarry, where she does not have the courage to jump, and now she does, and she has overcome her fear. And that's it. That is book 1 of Legendborn. I did not expect to find it as horrible as it is. I remember reading it the first time and just being really confused about the whole hierarchy order of the KKK. Like, on the second reread, I didn't realize that I was just reading another Shadowhunter book. Like, so much of it is just Shadowhunter repackaged to have Bree as the black girl and just have the Shadowhunter names and stuff just changed. Like, am I reaching when I say this book is basically beat for beat City of Bones? Like, we have starting premise of the story where Clary meets a bunch of people killing demons that no one can see in the Mortal Instrument, and in Legendborn we see Bree seeing a bunch of people kill demons that no one can see. Like, and then in Shadowhunter, Clary finds her mother missing. A demon is sent to attack her. Clary tells her the day before her mother went missing, they had a huge fight. Jay saves her and brings her to the Institute, and that is how she is integrated into the Shadowhunter Society. Legendborn, Bree's mother died, causing her to go to UNC Chapel Hill, where she meets Nick. They are attacked by a demon. Bree gets hurt, and she gets brought to the infirmary, where she then gets integrated into the Legendborn Society. The primary mystery of City of Bones is Clary looking for her mother and where she had disappeared. Someone called Valentine seemed to be behind it. Legendborn, Bree is searching for an answer on who killed her mother. A Merlin is said to be behind it. Clary and Jace visit City of Bones, where Clary's memory is unlocked. Bree's memory, the night her mother died, is unlocked when she comes across Ether. The entire Legendborn is just the whole hierarchy of Shadowhunter, just repackaged with a different name. Like, I kid you not, the entirety of the Order is just the Shadowhunters. The Order is just confined to this bunch of families who are descended from the Knights of the Round Table. Shadowhunters are confined to this specific families who have angel blood in them. Only those who are the descendant of the Knights Shadowhunters can awaken the knights in the Legendborn. In Shadowhunters, only Shadowhunters can awaken the angel blood, like we see Clary, Jace, and other characters do. Also, the Shadowhunters have the council, the order has the region. The whole structure is basically the same. Shadowhunters have their motto as the law is hard but it is the law. Legendborn has the motto that the line is the law. Warlocks are the children of a demon and normal human being, and they have magic. Merlins are children of demon and a normal human being, and they have magic. The Parabatai the bonding oath bond. Both hunt demons with combat weapons and training. Both involve secret society that the main character comes into. The antagonist of the story is a white dude who happened to be the main character's love interest's father, Nick and Dr. Lord Davis, Valentine and Jace. Lord Davis tries to accelerate the coming of Camlin by unleashing demons on the campus 25 years ago, so Arthur will rise to the call. Valentine created the circle nearly the same time to eliminate downworlders using Shadowhunter and demons. The plan failed both times before both men try again in the time of their children. Clary and Jace are implied to be siblings. Bree and Nick seems to share an ancestor. I don't know how that works in the family tree, but it's a long time ago. Also, our main character has a normal best friend, Simon and Alice. Like, am I reaching when I say this book is beat for beat just Shadowhunter story? In Legendborn, Bree is trying to integrate through the initiation into the Legendborn society. In there, Clary is brought into the society because they discover that she is a Shadowhunter, but she just doesn't know it. I'm like, my goodness, I've been literally tricked into reading another Shadowhunter book. I did not expect this in the year of my Lord 2025, like truly. Now we've got the plot out of the way. Like, that was a wild ride, bro. Got whiplash every few chapters. So my overall feelings about the book is that it could have been better. It just felt like another Shadowhunter book, and we all know what kind of book that is. And I just felt like the book was fine for till the third act, but the moment Bree turned into a gaslighted victim was when it all just fell away from me. I was just like, this girl needs to get some sense smacked into her. And what do we have for the characters? So first of all, we have Bree, and I really like Bree. Like, it's not that I hate her, I really like her. Like, I really love her character, how steadfast she is, how courageous she is, how she loves her mother so much. But so much of Bree's identity revolves around her being black. Like, we do not know who Bree is as a character within the narrative. Like, her whole story, whole experience, her whole arc, who she is as a character, all comes from her identity of being black, that we don't really ever learn who Bree is without her identity as a black. And I'll explain what this is in the later section. Next, we have Darling Nick. I actually really love Nick. Like, he is the only character in this entire book that I really like. Like, he is kind, he is gentle. Like, I mean, he's white, but otherwise, I don't really have a problem with him. He was kind and gentle with Bree. Like, he genuinely looks out for her. Like, the whole point of him even agreeing to come back to the order, even though he's renounced it like since he was 12, you know, just to protect this one girl who, by all accounts, a normal person, that she has no idea what she's walking into, that he does what he does to help protect her, because she is an innocent, vulnerable person. Like, I don't have a problem with him. I really like Nick compared to everyone else. Like, he's incredibly kind and gentle and lovely. Like, I love Nick. And then we have our resident Jace Arundel, Selwyn Kane. Like, I've got nothing else to say to him. I've been ranting about him like this whole book. Like, he's an ass. And then we have, who else do we have? We have Dr. Lord Davis, who thinks he's the second coming of Arthur, which we learned, like, no, you're not, dude. He's just a weird, convoluted, crazy white dude. And then we have Patricia, who is the only other black character other than Mariah. Like, they don't even have like that big of a role. And that's the funny thing, we don't meet any other black characters in the book. Anyone Bree meets or forms a community or becomes friends with, like, she is literally in a predominantly white space. Like, I understand that she's infiltrating the order and everything, and that's why I felt like the timeline could have been paced out a bit better rather than have it all happen within the span of like 1.5 weeks. Like, literally, it's 1.5 weeks of all of this happen, and I just wish we had paced the timeline 2 to 3 months so that the relationships develop, that Bree gets to meet other black kids, that she's able to form communities, that she's able to make other connections that's not white people. Like, she gets so pulled into the circle of white people that she does not meet anyone else. And the only reason she even got to meet Patricia is because her father set it up with the therapist, and that's about it. It's not like Bree herself went and searched for this woman, and the only reason she even agreed to it because Patricia seemed to have known her mother, and that's the only reason she agreed to do this. And Patricia herself is like, you see Bree as this vulnerable black girl going into this space that is predominantly only occupied by white people. The least you can do is at least be a support system for her where she has no one else except her best friend. Like, her dad had already called you to tell that her mother just died, and of course she's going through this horrible thing, and she's infiltrating this order that is like super dangerous with blood crafters. Like, you know all of this. The least you can do is at least be someone she can rely on and talk to about this whole fantastical element of blood crafters and root crafters and all that. Like, who else is she going to talk to? No one else knows about this. But Patricia is just like, Bree is getting too deep into the order. She doesn't want to be helped, so I can't help her. Okay, you don't have to help her in therapy ways. You can help her in any other way. Just be someone there for her. Like, what's the point of talking about the black identity, the black community, how black people have to stick together for their own safety, for their own culture, for their own heritage? And what's the point of talking all of this when you're not going to show it? And that's also another problem I had with this book. I'll come back to that in a bit. And then we have, who else? Alice. Alice was one person at the beginning of the book and another person at the end of the book. That's it. We don't get anything else. And we have Bree's mother. I mean, when we begin the story, she's already dead. And that's the thing. We don't really learn about her from anyone else. We don't really get to know who she is or what she has been like when she was alive. Like, Bree is so wrapped around her grief that she doesn't even tell us who her mother was as a person rather than someone's dead mother. That's all we know of Faye, that she's someone's dead mother, that we don't really learn who she is. And I just wish we could have at least made few attempts to have people talk to Bree about her, how she was this amazing botanist, how she was this good friend, how she was this amazing person who cooked the best something, like bits and pieces of it. Like, the father doesn't talk about her, Bree doesn't talk about her, like nobody talks about her unless in the context that she's Bree's dead mom and that, you know, her family has practices in rootcraft, and that's it. We don't really learn who she is as a person, and I feel like that's such a lost opportunity because so much of this book revolves around her being dead, and I wish we could have at least gotten a bit more. And now onto the overall thematic part of this book, and it's all about the black identity and the black experience. And you know how there is this golden rule that every author follows, that you have to show and not tell. It does not make much of an impact if you're just telling things without showing. Like, you just tell this person is sad without ever showing this person is sad, or you're just saying that this person is angry without ever showing us that he's angry. The thing I found that's happening here, that the overall thematic part of the story has been all tell but no show. And it's very apparent because the book talks about black people, the black experience, the black community, and yet in this entire book, the whole way through, all we see is just Bree experiencing racism and microaggression at the hands of the white people, and that's it. And it feels like that's all we have to take away from it. Like, when Bree's dad, when she arrives at the campus, he calls her up and says, you know, have you met any other black kid? You know, go and find a community there. But we see that she does none of this. We don't meet any other black characters. We meet Patricia, and instead of being someone who Bree can depend on, she just yeets out of there at the first sign of danger. We don't even get Mariah. She's just there for one scene and that's it. And then there's a point where Bree, you know, she passes by this group of black kids in the campus having their own community and stuff, and it's such a short line and it's said in a passing that we don't get anything of it. The majority of the book is just Bree being surrounded by white people and us just reading about the racism and the microaggression she faces. Like, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I feel like it's showing that that's the only thing that happens when you're black. Like, it's not that you have a strong community with your people, you have strong sense of family, that you have a rich culture and heritage. We don't see any of that, except that Bree faces this horrible experience of being black in South Carolina. And also Bree gets hung up on two white boys. Like, you telling me she cannot find even one boy of color in that entire campus, and she's not hung up on one white boy but two white boys? Like, for real? Like, what? that's what I'm trying to understand. What this book is trying to say is the Black's experience only just about racism and microaggression? Is that no other experience that talks about the Black people and their identity? Like, is that all there is to know about Black people? It's such a bizarre thing, and the fact that it's not me expecting more, it's that these things are being brought up in the book and I'm trying to find where it is. It's just people keep talking about it but we don't see it anywhere. Bree's just surrounded by white people 24/7 in that span of 1.5 weeks. She's just around white people. She does not see any other Black kid or any other person of color. It's just them, and it's so bizarre. And there's also this other thing that ties into this overall thematic that I had a problem with, is that it's very hard for me to know how to read Bree. Like, am I supposed to read Bree as a character who happens to be Black, or am I supposed to read Bree as a Black character? And these are two very distinctive narrative choices that you make when you set out to write a book. And Tracy Deonn is leaning very heavily on the second. But I find that this does not work in the premise that she's writing, especially when she puts in a text as rich as an Arthurian text, because Arthurian text already comes with its rich history, its context, and its parameters, and all that works within that enclosed text. And you trying to bring up your own theme with it is not going to work, because then the elements within the rich text of the Arthurian is going to just gloss over what you're trying to talk about in terms of Bree and her experience as a Black person. And it's also the problem that I had about this book, and especially the world building about the book, because when you read Bree as a character who happens to be Black, then her identity from her race comes secondary to her identity in the story. That everything that we learn about her as a character comes from the context within the parameters of the plot and the narrative, and that her experience is what in the story informs us of who she is, rather than the preconceived notion of her experience based on her race. If we read Bree as a character who happens to be Black, then the narrative has to talk about Bree as a character who infiltrates the order as an outsider, and what it means for her to inherit this power. The whole narrative of this story comes from Bree learning who she is from the secrets her mother has hidden, and who she is within the close-knit circle of this order, so that the people in that circle does not accept her on the account of her race, but because she's an outsider who does not know their way. You see, the whole prejudice that she faces within the order is not on the account of the race. Her identity as a Black person comes secondary to her identity as a character within the narrative. Now, if we read Bree as a Black character, then her identity and experience informs us comes from her own experience as a Black woman, as it's already an established preconceived notion that everything that who she is already comes with this history of the prejudice and obstacle she faces on the account of the race that she's born into. And this is really what Tracy Deonn is going for. But because we have the Arthurian stuff and the magic system and the whole fantastical element, the whole point of reading Bree's experience as a Black woman either competes for attention as the focus of the story, or it just kind of gets lost within the whole fantasy element. The whole fantasy element does not help to complement or highlight the struggles that Bree faces within the story. Tracy Deonn just has too much stuff going on in the story that everything is trying to compete for attention. You know, are we supposed to read it as a fantasy? Are we supposed to read it as a contemporary story about a Black woman? Are we supposed to take it as an Arthurian text? Like, what are we supposed to take it as? And all these three elements, they do not streamline into one cohesive narrative, that they're all just there fighting for our attention, and it feels like everything is just halfway done. That is not a full story, and that's one of the problems that I have with this. If Tracy Deonn had written this as a contemporary story, because if we want to read Bree as a Black character, the only way that we can read this is as a contemporary story, because contemporary fiction helps to root your story in reality, and it brings into focus not only Bree as a Black woman, as a protagonist in this story, and it's not just her experience, but the experience of every other Black person and the discrimination they face based on the account of their race. Like, we can still work the plot as it is. Like, you just remove the secret society and stuff, Bree still meets Snake, Bree still meets Self. It's just that they're not part of the secret society, they're just part of some gifted program that is mostly just reserved for white people. And when Nick invites her, because we're told very early in the story that she got into this early college program based on merit. Do you know how incredibly smart you have to be able to apply for an early college program just based on merit? Like, she is an incredibly smart person, and we don't see that. Like, she goes to one class and that's it. We don't see her in any class. We don't see how she's intelligent. We just told she's intelligent. But at least this way, we learn that she gets through this early college program through merit, and we see that, you know, maybe it's the dean, maybe it's Nick, maybe it's someone that recommends her to go into this gifted program. But this gifted program is only exclusive, especially rich white people, and suddenly Bree is there and she feels like an outsider. She doesn't know how to navigate the spaces and the prejudice and the discrimination she faces, because that brings into focus of us reading Bree as a black character, and it brings into much greater depth of what she's feeling, because so much of that contemporary fiction roots in reality. So, you know, this has a possibility of making such a great impact as a story. Now, I'm not saying there's no way that you can write this story as a fantasy. You can still write this book as a fantasy, and we can still read Bree as a black character, but we have to throw out the Arthurian stuff, because primary problem that is complicating the story now. So if we throw out the Arthurian stuff and we still keep the magic system that Tracy Deonn had already established in the book, because I find it's an amazing magic system. It's simple enough that we grasp the concept easily. It's also simple enough to be streamlined into the story that you can really play around with it. And so we will keep the main branch of magic as root/ether, and instead of order and stuff, you throw it out. You just have certain people who are able to just access this magic. That's about it, like root crafters and ether crafters or whatever. So it's just a certain individual who can access this energy. But the point of contingency in this is that if you directly access that energy, you will pay the consequences in terms of your lifeline. So because Patricia explains it to us in the book that you cannot just use it for your own good. What you take, you have to give back. If you access root/ether directly, once you use that energy, your lifeline is depleted based on how much energy you use, and that's the direct consequences of directly using that energy. And you can keep that, you know, white people are the one who use that. Now, black people on the other hand, they do not tap into that energy directly. What they do is that they go through that line of transaction through their ancestor. Now, the ancestor works as the middle third party. They are able to grant their descendant temporary usage of root so that they can do what they want and then give them back. And so there's no direct consequences to them because they're not directly accessing it. They're accessing it through their ancestors who are dead. We are told one of the primary point of the magic system is that Shadowborns or dead people are the ones closest to ether/root. And so of course it would make sense for them to be the one with direct access to this energy. And the clincher here is that the white people then figures out that, you know, they want to have access to this energy, not finite but infinite, but they don't want to have to bear the consequences of it. And so what they figure out is that they see black people borrow this energy from their ancestors, and they see that line of transaction going between the three of them. They think if you steal while that transaction is going on, you basically just get free energy. You do not bear the consequences because you are not directly tapping into the main source. So what they do is that while the black people are having that line of transaction using that energy, they come and steal that energy, effectively killing the person who's using it in the process. And because the line of transaction is from that person through the ancestor, and this outside force just takes it, and so it doesn't affect them at all. And can you see how you can work this into the whole idea of how you can talk about Bree as a black character? And this whole point of the white people stealing this magic from black folks can also tie in with the colonialism and the white supremacy. Like, it's not just white people oppressing black people for the sake of colonialism and whatnot and the slavery, but because they find that root crafters have an easier access into tapping into root, and also they do not bear the consequences of using that energy. They see an opportunity to exploit it. And so you can work this into what the story is essentially talking about, is that white people mistreating, abusing, oppressing black people. You can stream parallel themes running side by side. It's not just historically that this thing has happened because of colonialism, it's also happened because of the magic. That's how you work your magic magic system, your narrative, your theme side by side with the important messages you want to bring up in the story. And so you can see how they can work side by side. This whole point is already highlights the main focus of the story, that we read Bree as a black character. And so it's not just white people benefiting from the hard work of black people in terms of colonialism and slavery, but also magic. So it ties in really well with the story. You just change bits and pieces of the detail, like Bree's mother does die because of her root curse. It's not because anyone has targeted her or anything. So she's going through this, and then one day through her grief she suddenly awakens her magic, and that is when Nick sees her and he sees, oh my god, this person has magic too. The thing is, most of the children of the secret society do not know how their families, their ancestors have gained this power. And so when Nick sees Bree, at first he's like, oh my god, another person who can use magic. I've never met any other black person who can use magic. All I know is white people. And so he's like, he's really interested because he doesn't know. And so he invites Bree into this circle, and Bree goes in to want to learn, to know what is happening to her, because her mother died. She has no one else to tell her what it is. She can eventually meet Patricia, and Patricia tells her that, you have inherited this power from your mother, and that's where she understands where this power comes from, and that the point of contingency is that you can still keep that Bree joins this circle, and most of the children of the adults are mistrustful of Bree because they have never heard of a person of color having the magic that they do. And so everyone is confused, but the adults are so happy to have Bree there. At first she's a bit mistrustful. It's like, what is going on? Why are they being so nice to me? But then they start to lavish her with all of these luxuries that they can afford, and she starts to think that this is not a bad place, this is not a bad thing, because not only is she learning about her magic, about what she's able to do, but she's also being given all of this opportunity that people of her race, of her standings, do not usually get, and so she is trying to take this opportunity as she can. But then we also introduce other black characters who at first try and warn Bree away from these people, but they cannot reveal that they have powers, because if they reveal it, then those people are going to know too. And so you have this conflict of interest about Bree trying to understand what is she supposed to do, and so that her identity doesn't just revolve around her race, but also around who she is. Like, she wants to be successful, she wants to be able to get this opportunity that white people easily get. She knows how easy it is to lose everything, and so she wants to grab this while she can, but she also wants to be part of the community of her people. She wants to be among her people, because as much as she likes being with these other white people, it's not the same as being around other black kids. And so she has this internal conflict where she's wondering, like, what can she do about this? She's struggling, and that comes into play with the bigger narrative that this book is trying to talk about. So you can still work this story in this way. The whole idea that these white people are being nice to her, the adults especially, that's when she uncovers the conspiracy that, these white people have been stealing magic from black people. Once the truth gets revealed, that either some of the kids support Bree because she's their friend, or some, support the older white people because that's how it's always been. And so you have people not just bonded through their race and community, but also their ability, the magic that they share. The whole point of the thematic stuff here is the community. Like, where does the community begin? Is this something that binds you to another person through shared ability, or is it just, confined to the identity of a race? Like, I find community with people who loves the same thing as I do, but I also find community in people of my race and people of my culture. So you have this intersectionality of all of these intricate little bits that make up a larger theme of what it means to be a person of a certain race. And you literally can write this to be such a good story. And I just wish Tracy Deonn had done this instead of adding the Arthurian bit into the story, because now the Arthurian bit is the one that sort of ruins the whole book for me. It's when you bring a story like Arthurian text into a book, you're not just keeping it vague enough that you can play around with it, but this is a text that is already rich with history, rich with its own stories, its own parameters, its own narrative that it's very, very difficult for someone to bring in their own work in a work that's already rich with context. And so it can work if someone like really finds a way to work, but otherwise it's really difficult. And I feel that's what's happening here, that if you want to have this as an Arthurian retelling, we cannot have Bree be read as a black character. She just has to be a character who happens to be black, because then you take into account that who she is in the story within the context of the narrative. It has to inform us about her character through the narrative rather than her identity, because that's the only way you can work, because when you put a name like King Arthur, who had millennia of texts talking about him, who had millennia of people adapting his story, telling his story, talking about his story, when you put someone with that sort of enormous legacy next to a person like Bree, who is a woman of color, who do you think is going to get the spotlight? Like, who is Bree next to King Arthur? And that's why I feel that, the Arthurian text does not work for Legendborn, because it feels like it's just an embellishment on the story rather than its embedded text. What I mean by this is that when you bake a cake, you bake the cake with the primary ingredients, and once it's baked, you then decorate it with cream, with whatever you wanted. Now, the Arthurian text in the story feels like the cream which you decorate the cake rather than the ingredient for which you bake the cake, because the Arthurian does not work in the story, and it does not highlight anything of Bree as a black character. It's just there with its own preconceived history and text, knights and orders and stuff. And so when you put something that rich next to your own magic system, it's not going to meld into a single cohesive narrative. You're gonna face problems because they do not meld together. Everything just feels halfway done. We do not get any more depth than the surface level of what you're talking about. Because I've already talked about it from the very beginning of the story. Like, nothing in the text tells me there's anything in there that links to actual Arthurian text. Like, descendant of Gawain is a healer, which does not make sense because Gawain is not a healer in any preconceived Arthurian text. Lancelot is basically reduced to a womanizer and a person who has affair with Arthur's wife. And Arthur himself is this, amazing king. We don't see anything about him. And Merlins are just people with magic. We do not get anything else. It's just all surface level. Morgans are the evil people, as usual. Because if you want to talk about Arthurian retelling, you have to put the text as an embedded text, that you're writing it alongside this Arthurian text, or you're alluding to this Arthurian text. But this doesn't. Tracy Dion just putting in all this name just to say that's Arthurian, the name, not because it's alluding to anything in the text that has actual Arthurian text. It's just the names, which that's not how intertextuality works. Okay, if we are still insistent on doing this as an Arthurian text, I would say that we have to do it something similar to the vein of contemporary young adult book called Avalon High. It got published in 2005, and that book is a contemporary high school drama / rom-com book, but it has Arthurian text. Is not the focus of the narrative, but it's alluding to the Arthurian text enough that this is what the story is talking about. And so that's why I say that if you want to do an Arthurian retelling, then you have to make that text as the embedded narrative in your story. It does not have to be the story that you entirely tell, but it has to somehow allude to this is the Arthurian text that you're referring to, because that's how intertextuality works. You cannot just put the names of Arthurian characters in there and say it's an Arthurian retelling. That's not how it works. And what would have made this book a really good Arthurian retelling is that we just throw out all the order. We completely throw out the order, but we have it in the vein something similar to maybe, I would guess, Percy Jackson. Is that these kids are descendants of King Arthur and the outside community of people rather than a cult society. And I would rather have Nick as Arthur. He is so set up to be the Arthur that I feel that once the plot twist gets revealed at the end, that I just feel a bit let down, because classic Sword in the Stone plot twist anyway, but I just feel that I would rather have Nick as Arthur in the story, Sel as Merlin, the other characters as the other knights, and without the X-Men superpowers. And I would rather have Bree be the descendant of Mordred, you're already establishing a incredibly great conflict. And the whole point is that you cannot just put Bree as a black character who's the descendant of Mordred, go into this group of people who are descendant of Arthur, and then they behave badly towards her on the account of a race, because that then just takes away the point of the Arthurian story. If she is the descendant of Mordred, then it comes into the idea that, Mordred is the one who has caused the death of Arthur. Mordred was a knight of the round table, and so you have this conflict where these are people who know Bree as their friend, but now they have to view her as Mordred's descendant because everybody knows Arthur died by Mordred's hand. And Arthur in the Arthurian text is not like the most perfect guy in the world. Like, he's done many horrible things in the book that sometimes they do just get glossed over to just show, he's a perfect king, which is not true. He's literally gone to war with people just to conquer their lands. Like, he's not a great guy. And there's a point where he commits something called the May Day Massacre, where he gives the order to kill babies born on May. And that's really where the name May Day Massacre comes in, because Merlin tells him of a prophecy of a child that is born on May that will be his undoing. And this motherfucker commits a massacre just to avoid this fate. But of course, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy anyway. So the point of what I'm trying to say here is that, as much as anyone is in the victim in the story, Mordred is also a victim in the story. That, that he was born out of this union that was never supposed to happen. Like, everything can be traced back to Uther and Merlin's meddling. Like, every problem in Arthurian text is basically their fault. And so the characters has to deal with it. And so Mordred, as much as, he's a flawed character too, he's also a victim in the sense that, this guy who's supposed to be his father literally tries to kill him when he's a child. So you have that transgression, and Arthur is not the completely perfect king we all imagine him to be. And so you have this intricacy to talk about the characters more in depth, and you can also play with your own character that, they are not just simply the living descendants of Arthur and his round table. They are not their ancestors. They are their own person. And so you have that intertextuality where you view that Bree is some of these people's friends, and yet some of them view her as she is Mordred. There is already this conflict that comes into the story under the preconceived notion from the Arthurian text. And so that's how you're able to write Arthurian retelling. You know what? I just realized that these people don't even have to be descendants of Arthur. That the whole mythical stuff of the legends of King Arthur himself, it's not necessary that these children get the calling because they're heirs of Arthur and his knights, but they get calling because they share the same values as this knight, that the knights feel that they are worthy to be the people who best represents them. And I feel that would have been a better narrative to have, like, instead of it just being confined to these people have to be the scions of the knight because they are descendants of the knight, sort of pigeonholes them, it has to be the way because they are the heirs, rather than if you have it as the knights themselves who choose these people on the account that these are the children they feel best represents them in their strength, in their values, in their chivalry, that they say this the one I choose. And so they get the calling not on the account that because it's bloodline, but because of their character. And I feel that is what would have been the best representative if we were talking about Arthurian time, because the whole point of the company of the knights in Arthur's court is that most of them are not people with already established name, that they come into this knighthood to gain name, to gain glory, gain fame, that some of them are alluded to be children of knights and kings and stuff. But the fact that they do come from nothing, they don't come with the preconceived title of a prince or anything. Like Lancelot is alluded to be the son of a king, but he is raised so far out of civilization that when he comes in with nothing. Percival too is alluded to be a son of a knight, but his mother raises him in a forest that he doesn't know anything. And when he does come to Camelot, he is so mesmerized by the whole point of the knight. And when he does become a knight and returns to Camelot, it's not that he's already established a name for himself. He comes as someone with nothing, and then through the quests and the deeds, good deeds that he does, that they all gain their name. Even Gawain and his brothers, that there's anything to them other than they're the son of Mogaeus, that they come into the company of the knights and then they gain the whole name for themselves. And also it applies to the other knights as well, that when they come in to to be part of Arthur's Knights of the Round Table. They do not come in with their own titles. They do not come in with their, I would say, privilege of being a king's son or something. They come in to prove themselves, that the point of being a knight is to make a name for themselves rather than come in with an already established name. And that's how this works. And I feel like instead of having the children be the heirs of the knights themselves, it would be such an impactful story had the knights themselves chosen these children to be the one that represents them, because that ties into the parallel that the whole point of the knights going on quests is that they are chosen, who then sends them on their quest. They become the person's champion and they represent the person and go on behalf of this person on the quest. And so that ties in with the whole purpose of the knights going on the quest. And so you can see how this sort of works in parallel with the theme. And that's the thing I say, that when you take a text as rich as Arthurian, there's already so much established in this book that you have to find a way to play around with it rather than use that to work into your story, because that's not going to work. That will clash with your story. But if you find a way to work with the already established text of Arthurian and you play around with it, you just subvert tropes just a bit and you show how, it's still malleable enough that you can play with it, but it's still alluding to Arthurian text. And that's what I'm trying to explain here. So that's why I'm saying you cannot view Bree as a black character in this situation, because then it would just mean it's plain racism. If you want to talk about Arthurian text, you have to view Bree as a character who just happens to be black, so that whatever difficulties, prejudice that she faces in the books comes out of context within the narrative that's happening and not in her identity as a black person. So yeah, that is my thoughts on Legendborn. I don't know where this story is gonna go. Somehow it's gotten worse on the second read. Like, at least on the first read, I still had the opinion that maybe I was not ready to read that book at that time, and maybe it did have some really interesting stuff in it that I, who was not well versed in Arthurian then, would not have gotten the intricacies of it now. But somehow on the second read, it just proved to piss me off even more. I don't know if I just read an Arthurian retelling or just another Shadowhunter book, and I am so traumatized. And now I have to go through two other books. I did not think I was going to read another Shadowhunter book when I picked up Legendborn again, and I am shook. I am really shook. And now off to book 2, that is Bloodmark.